All right. We are not 6 feet apart.
Yeah, it's longer than it appears. So
that's what she said. Hey, Slumpbusters, we are live for UFC 249. So, Pettis versus Cerrone currently taking place in the prelims right now. Obviously, we're all excited about Tony versus Gaethje. A little bit disappointed, obviously, that Khabib is trapped in Russia. So
I know, and I was honestly surprised that they didn't just postpone it since it got postponed anyways. But I know they wanted to get a fight out there.
Yeah,
whoever wins this will get Khabib anyways. So
yeah, if you're Tony, you've been on the bench for too long. You want to get a fight in. Mm-hmm. So if you're new to the channel, I am Juju Talk Sports. This is MMA Dre, and we are the Slumpbusters. So welcome in. Enjoy. We're here to accompany you through this pay-per-view, and hopefully you enjoy our content. Check out some of the stuff we're posting. Manscaped.com, 20% off. Use promo code SLUMP. If you get tired of Rogan, you always got us.
Yep.
I know it's hard to get tired of Rogan. I mean, he's
great. He knows what he's talking about. They've got DC, so Daniel Cormier is also commenting, Ariel Helwani, so they definitely have their sort of really good commentators, but we'll try to add some things that maybe they're not catching. Just give our opinions on the way that the fights are going. Yeah, and
the second the Cowboy gets knocked out here, I can talk about how he quit. How we didn't learn anything about Pettis. The kind of stuff that you come for when you're fight analysis that I think is an expectation. But for real, no. I mean, Cerrone, Albuquerque native. Edgewood native, basically the same thing. Are we supporting him? Where are we on this one here?
So I always support all the Albuquerque fighters. So Michelle Watterson recently fought. She's fighting out of Albuquerque. Obviously, Donald Cerrone, who we just talked about, is fighting out of Albuquerque. I want to say there was actually one more Albuquerque fighter that was on the cards tonight. So I'm always going to support them. Doesn't mean I will pick them, though. And in fact, I chose Carla Esparza over Michelle Watterson. That was a close fight. And then I actually have Pettis in this one.
That's fair. I mean, so Pettis is coming off that broken foot the last time we saw him. Mm-hmm. Forget, who was his last fight against?
Let me see. I can do some quick research.
I know it was a competitive one. Was it against Dia? No, I'm kidding.
Let's see. It was against Carlos Ferreira.
Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha.
And that was down at lightweight. This fight is up at welter, so it is a little step above. That's where I think Cerrone maybe has a little bit more of an advantage from the last time that they fight. Is he's a little bit more well rested. He's up a little bit bigger, but.
Well, it looks like our third compatriot is currently in the chat. What's up, Eris? How you doing? Hope you're having a good time with your future mother-in-law. Yeah. We're just desperately missing you.
I know. So our other co-host happened to ditch us because he would rather celebrate Mother's Day today.
Yeah, but not even his mom.
Looked like there was an eye poke, but the ref hasn't stopped it. So Pettis is doing his job by just moving forward.
Oh, Pettis is a little bloody. He's beat up right now.
Yeah. The ref didn't stop it, though, which I'm really surprised. I think we're going to maybe get a look after this round is done.
Yeah, They're going to see if there's a replay. You see Cowboy favoring that eye. He's basically, winking at him right now.
Yeah, and if it is a true eye poke, I think it's messed up, and Cerrone should have gotten that break, right? You deserve one. But sometimes the glove, just because it's so small, and those gloves that UFC fighters are fighting with, they're a little bit more, rigid than some of the other MMA training gloves. Yeah. So it feels like a poke.
Eris, we cannot turn the computer around. That would get us copyright strikes. Do you want to see this fail? Do you want to see this kingdom we built burn to the ground?
Yeah, we're not going to illegally stream the fight for you, Eris. Apologies.
Yeah. I mean, we could start fighting now. Scrap a little. I don't know.
We'll try to recreate what's happening for you.
Exactly. I mean, I got Dre beat by 5 or 10 weight classes right now.
Yeah, quite a few, Juju.
Quarantine has not done me well, guys, as I drink this truly hard seltzer because I want to get lit, but I also want to save on the calories a little bit.
Yeah,
it's all about being responsible, really,
Exactly. And as you can see, I'm drinking water, right? So that tells you the difference between us two.
I mean, it's basically water. It's seltzer. Now, Truly is not an official sponsor of the Slumpbuster podcast. However, truly, if you are down for it, if you are down to bust the slump, we would gladly welcome you onto the team. Truly, hard seltzer. It is truly the right thing to get you fucked up.
Oh, looks like Cowboy's a little bit
He's
pissed
got him in the
off.
corner. He's got him in the corner.
Ooh.
Threw that late head kick. 3 rounds, bloodied.
Yeah. I do like the sort of camaraderie between the two fighters. So they hugged earlier, right in between rounds 2 and 3. And then that was a pretty good battle. I think Cowboy was a little bit upset at
not getting the
stoppage not getting the stop for the eye poke. So it does look like it was an open hand, and it does look like it was a poke. So Cerrone probably should have gotten that break, but the referee unfortunately did not step in and stop it. So I can see why Cerrone was a little bit upset, and he was attacking like it at the end.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. It's hard to say who's got the win in this one. It looked like it was pretty close.
It was a close fight the entire time. Cowboy got a few takedowns and had Pettis up against the cage for a few moments. He got in some really good kicks. A lot of them were blocked to the head, but still his leg kicks they just showed were pretty good. It's going to be a close fight.
Let's see. I love slow motion when it comes to UFC fights.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever just want to get like the carnage of what takes place in the octagon, go to the slow-mo cam. It's just brutal.
In my opinion, I think this is the best sports slow-mo cam. Like, because with basketball, it's still pretty cool. You can see like those cool three-point shots or whatever. But like, you don't see a face jiggle and blood spurt out, you know?
Oh, yeah. When someone catches someone flush with a punch, especially like right to the schnoz, you know? Ooh. It's vicious. It's a vicious game. Bloodsport.
Yep. All right, here we go. Here's the official decision coming up.
3 rounds. We go to the judges' scorecards for a decision. All 3 judges scored this contest 29-28 for the winner by unanimous decision. Anthony Showtime.
Ooh, unanimous. That was close. So it was a unanimous decision, but that's still a pretty close decision, though, right? Is Cowboy, won one of those rounds. I had thought it would have been a little bit closer, but that was a good fight. That's actually who I picked, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel for Cowboy. He's just trying to get a win in here at this point, and I think he probably just wants a win to walk off into the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
But
and he looked good in this fight. I thought he was moving really well. A lot of his transitions. So there was times where Pettis was getting off of the canvas, right? So he's doing a stand-up from underneath, and he would throw that head kick right away. Unfortunately, he got blocked several times, but Cowboy looked good in this fight.
See, the problem is he quit. He quit. We didn't learn anything about Pettis.
Stephen A. was exactly right.
Stephen A. was exactly right. Clearly, Cowboy Cerrone, a man who has fought the most UFC fights in history, is nothing but a quitter. I don't think he has anything left here.
I know. And what
Stop it!
What makes me upset about Stephen A. as well is that this dude literally just took a fight against McGregor, and he could have said, hey, I'm taking a whole year off. If he would have said, I'm taking 2 years off, the UFC can't do anything about it. Instead, he chose like, hey, get me right into the octagon as soon as you can, which this is the first event since, all of COVID-19 has happened. And he put on a competitive fight. So Stephen A. has no idea what he's talking about.
But if you ever want a good time, just look at that interview with Rogan and Stephen A. together. Like, you just see Rogan just giving him death stares throughout the interview. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. You need to shut up.
And then you roast him on JRE, and Stephen A's fighting back here on like Instagram Live, and he's like, Rogan, if you test me, it's like, what the fuck are you going to do against Joe Rogan, Stephen A?
I know.
He would eat you.
Exactly. And so I don't know if you've ever seen any of the videos of Joe Rogan actually practicing Taekwondo and karate, and his kicks are freaking amazing. He has this spinning back kick and his side kicks. Those are the 2 strongest kicks that you could produce. And let me tell you, he crumples 100-pound punching bags, like literally just folds them in half.
That's what Stephen A. is, 100-pound punching bag.
That will get folded.
They should, just to be fair, they should have both Joe Rogan do like a basketball game against Stephen A. and Stephen A. get in 1 round. Joe Rogan has to tie a hand behind his back or some shit, though, because let's face it, basketball's not nearly as brutal as UFC.
yeah, definitely not. I mean, and here's the crazy thing I think about MMA fighters and boxers, right? All these combat sports athletes is not only do they have to train extremely hard physically, just like your NFL players, right? Or your NBA players, NHL, MLB, whatever, but then their diet has to be, I think it's even more important to have a good diet when you're training as an MMA fighter because you got to lose the weight. And then once you get to the latter half, so when you're within that last like 2 weeks, that's when you start cutting out water weight too. So now you're going on like long runs, you're dehydrated, you have no water, and then you're still going to like light sparring sessions where you're like, they're probably not throwing haymakers at your face, but you're still getting kicked in the leg and you're getting kicked to the body and punched. Like, it does not feel good when you're dehydrated.
Now, if we could give Stephen A. one bad boy piston, maybe that might change the course. Like
Dennis Rodman.
Exactly. Stephen A. and Rodman in a handicap match against Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, Rodman also part of the NWO, WCW. Mm-hmm. I know, as we learned from CM Punk, professional wrestling doesn't always translate to the octagon, but maybe he's more of the Brock Lesnar type.
Yep. Yeah. You know, maybe
Ken Shamrock type. I don't know. Let's see.
All right. So we're going to get into the pay-per-view now. Hopefully if they, so it looks like it's 8:05.
So if our stream breaks, sorry, we're trying to obviously watch the actual pay-per-view while live streaming with y'all. And, if none of you are fortunate to actually have the pay-per-view tonight, hopefully, our commentary is sufficient enough to kind of guide you through this. Mm-hmm. At least that's our hope. Though second most, or actually the most pre-buys in UFC history is the statistic out there. So that kind of tells you what COVID has done to the economy of sports right now.
Exactly. And I imagine there's probably people that don't even care about the UFC, don't care about combat sports, and they're probably like, let me give it a shot, right? Like it's the only thing on. So I might as well.
I mean, literally, you just gotta be thankful for what we have because we haven't had that much at all. Recently, it's been rough goings.
Yep,
that's for sure.
Exactly. I will be right back. I'm gonna get something to clean the screen off a little bit.
Fair enough. Wonderful Jacksonville, Florida. Say it for me. Say it for me now. Duval. All my 5 Jag fans out there. Now, hopefully you don't lose the Jaguars to London. I believe, though, if you do need players, we are going to be welcoming in with the first fight of Greg Hardy. Now, Greg Hardy, former NFL star, decent amount of sacks. Oh, screen was now clean. So now you can all see our beautiful faces slightly better. Hopefully, maybe. Whatever.
I mean, it is just a laptop webcam, right? So the quality isn't always the greatest, but
it isn't always the greatest, but it will do. It will do. That'll do, Pig. Still funny that essential business in Florida.
I know. Hey, I'm happy for it though. I'm happy for it.
If it was any other state though, I don't think it would be as controversial.
No, I don't think so. Here's what is interesting. So one of the fights on this card got canceled because Jacare Souza did contract COVID-19, tested positive for it. And so it leads the question, right? Is it still ethical for the UFC to be hosting fights at a time where there is a pandemic and now one of your fighters has contracted it? From my understanding, he got it from a family member. So he didn't necessarily get it, let's say, from Joe Rogan or Daniel Cormier, who are commenting right now. But still, like, that potentially could expose all of their athletes to this virus and put them all at risk.
And that's kind of why they had to be super diligent. So from my understanding, all of these fighters got tested at least twice.
Yep.
And I don't know if you said Souza.
Yep. Yeah.
Got contracted on the first attempt. So we got his first test back and he got it. Or whether it was on the second test. Because you would think that the first test, they would have probably been a little bit more isolated, keeping away. But as the second test was kind of before the weigh-in process, so he might have interacted with a few more fighters. And unfortunately, the thing you've learned about COVID is you don't really know if you have it till like 4 or 5 days down the line.
Yep. Yeah. So, exactly. And then the thing is, all these guys are rehydrating. Some of them go out to restaurants to get some food to eat, right? They'd rather not just eat at their hotel or something. So they're interacting with people out on the street, even just walking from, the hotel to your car or from the airport, right? You got to interact with maybe people that have rental cars or rental car people. You're walking through the airport. So it does give a little bit more chance that these guys can contract it. But we'll see how the UFC handles things going forward.
All right, Ray. So let's do a quick rundown of like the card here, and I want to get your picks beforehand.
Yeah,
no one can
absolutely.
say that you're a liar. No one can say that you didn't pick these prior to the matchups here. You're MMA Dre, so the pressure is on.
I know.
You're perfect on your picks right now.
That's always my worry, right? Is so far I've done really good, and then now that it's going to be on camera, it's going to be you screwed it all up.
I mean, everything's been at least recorded in the past when we've done these pre-shows. But this is live. We're doing it live, baby.
I know. So so I want to go through. I do have the ESPN app where I did make my picks. Okay. So the ones that already passed, I'll go ahead and say. So I did choose Ryan Spann over Sam Alvey. Okay. That was a split decision, really close one. I would have probably chosen Jacare over Uriah actually, but since that fight didn't happen, it didn't matter who I chose. So I just random clicked that one. Didn't matter. I took Charles Rosa. He ended up losing to Bryce Mitchell. Mitchell was a really good up-and-coming young fighter. I thought, Rosa had a little bit more experience. That's why I was like, maybe I'll choose him. He had a battle with Yair Rodriguez. That one went to split decision. But I ended up choosing wrong. I should have went with the favorite on that one. Then I chose Vicente Luque. He ended up winning by TKO over Nico Price. As I said earlier, I chose Carla Esparza. She ended up winning over Michelle Watterson. A little controversial, but I'm happy. I'm upset for Michelle. She trains here. Karate Hottie is a wonderful person.
Karate Hottie, huh?
Yep. And she is. She's a beautiful woman that will, kick your butt.
Just wreck you.
Just destroy you.
Is that kind of a turn on in itself, though?
I mean, it depends who you are, right? Like if you like punishment, that might be your girl.
Not one to kink shame. I certainly don't expect to be kink shamed, so I'm just.
Yep. Moving on, I chose Fabricio Verdum, and this one was actually the hardest for me to choose because Oleinik has been fighting. I believe the stat was since 1997. So the dude's been around for forever. They're both 42 years old. But he has a whole lot of wear and tear, and I think he had lost 4 out of his last 5, and 2 or 3 of them had been by knockout. So that's why I was like, I think I'll go with Fabricio. But Verdum had taken 2 years off, so he hadn't fought since 2018. I think I underestimated the amount of ring rust that he would probably have. So I chose Verdum, and unfortunately that was wrong. And then I chose Anthony Pettis, as I mentioned in the last one.
And you got that one nailed down.
Yep. So I only missed 2 out of all of those. Moving on to my picks in the future.
In the main event card here.
In the main event. So I chose Greg Hardy is my pick currently going in to this fight. So I think Greg Hardy, even though his record is not as good as Yorgan De Castro, he is a little bit bigger, and we know that when you're just a large human being, right, you hit harder.
Yeah.
He's a really good athlete as well.
Well, you got to look at the matches he's lost. So he lost the match for an illegal elbow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then he also lost, of course, the last one due to the use of that inhaler.
Yep.
So that kind of messes with his stats a little bit there, though he is a physical specimen. Former NFL athlete, and we know what strategy is. He wants to run through you. In that last fight, though, it was kind of interesting because he took a more passive approach. It could be associated with the fact he did have an injury to his right hand.
Yep.
His right hand, that's the money for him,
Yep. You're a right-handed fighter. That's what you got to look at.
Exactly. That's where he lives and breathes. So if that was injured in his last fight, it makes sense why he was stalled a little bit.
Yep.
He's not much of a grappler. He's a brawler, So if he can't punch it, there goes his entire strategy.
Yep, exactly. And that's the thing is Yorgan De Castro, he's also a puncher, so I think they're going to want to stand up and bang. And in that case, I give it to the more athletic of the 2 fighters, right? If they're both going in with the same game plan, they both have the same sort of skill set and strength, then athleticism and size normally takes it for me. That's how I choose that. So.
Now, obviously a lot of people would be more than happy to see Greg Hardy get knocked out. But, that's for off the field, out of the octagon reasons.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm taking Greg Hardy in this one. Do you have a choice, Juju?
I'm going to go with similar with Hardy. He's definitely the better athlete of the two. And like I said, like you were saying, basically, like if it comes down to them wanting to stand and bag, I'm going to go with the guy that has the power advantage.
Yep.
You know, he has a little bit more size. De Castro's a little bit more bloated in the gut.
Yeah.
About it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to say like De Castro is a bad fighter. He actually has quite a few knockouts, and that's what worries me up at this sort of size and this weight class when you're in heavyweight is that these guys, they all pack a lot of power. So Hardy could get knocked out, but I'm still taking him to win this one.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Next fight up. So lightweight, right?
So next one goes to I believe this one's at featherweight. Is Jeremy Stephens and Calvin Kattar. I have actually chosen somewhat of an upset, though it's weird that a lot of people have chosen it. So I would think Stephens. So Jeremy Stephens is ranked number 7 at that weight. Calvin Kattar is ranked number 9. So in a way, by ranking, it's an upset. But 73% of people have picked Kattar as well, so they're on board with me. I think Stephens is good, but Kattar is up and coming. Stephens had some struggles in a few of his last fights. I think Kattar is right now just the better of the two fighters.
I went with Kattar myself, so.
Yeah. Stephens has a really, really good right hand, though. He's probably the heaviest hitter in that weight class, besides for when, like, McGregor was down there. McGregor probably hit a little bit harder, but yeah, Kattar's pretty good right now.
Well, let's do a little exercise. So on the Slumpbuster Instagram page, we did do some Instagram polls, too. In that last fight, Hardy versus De Castro, it was Hardy who was picked 73%. So Slumpbuster Nation, that's who you're going with. We'll walk with it. We're of the same mind of thinking here. As far as in that fight right there, Kattar is favored at 68% of the votes. So Kattar for me. You said Stephens.
Yep.
So we're
no. I said Kattar.
Okay, so we're both
so
on
Kattar.
So we're both in line with Slumpbuster Nation on this next one. Now Ngannou versus Rosenstruck.
This one was the other one that I had a lot of trouble with. I'm still going to go with Ngannou. I think he's fought in tougher opponents, so I think those wars that he's been in is going to help him as far as experience. He's also a freak of nature athlete, right? He's not quite the Greg Hardys where he's a professional NFL player, but he can move. He is a good athlete. So I'm going to go with Ngannou. He's also got a little bit of a size advantage, but Rosenstruck is undefeated, so you can't really count him out, but I still go Ngannou.
I'm going with Ngannou, physical specimen, He has just that. He hits so hard at that division.
He does.
He
hits hard.
That man punches you, you go flying back. That's the thing about Ngannou. So I'm going with that. I'm going with him. I'm going with the more superior athlete. As far as that pick went for the Instagram poll, that was Ngannou, 73%.
Wow, and that's pretty much in line with what the rest of the country did. So everybody that's using the ESPN app, 70% chose Ngannou, so
yeah,
it's pretty much in line, yeah.
All right, our final two fights. So the bantamweight title match, Caputa versus Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of background on these guys, Cruz at one point was a really good champion, but he's just always suffered injuries. He always has to take like 2 years off or 3 years off, and then he'll come back, and he fights a little bit, and then he gets injured again. Whereas Henry Cejudo is a former Olympic gold medalist, so that was sort of where his combat sport started. He was also a really good boxer. I want to say he did either Golden Gloves or amateur boxing, something like that, and then made the leap to MMA. Cejudo was the last person to beat Demetrius Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, at least in the UFC for sure.
Well, his last fight was against Moraes.
Moraes. Yep.
Was against Moraes. He's got a win against Dillashaw, and then you mentioned Demetrius Johnson. So those are his last 3 wins, or 3 of his last 4 wins. So, and the Demetrius Johnson one, he had to make up for a previous loss to Mighty Mouse there. So
yeah. And we know Mighty Mouse is one of, if not the best to ever do it from a technique standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that there's guys like John Jones, right, that get more finishes that are more exciting. But Demetrius Johnson is one of the best technicians on the planet.
Oh, for sure. In that fight, I am going to go with the former Olympic gold medalist. I'm going to go with Caputa. I think that he's going to win his first title defense, and I'll be happy for him. He definitely brought some excitement to the press conference last night, kicking a fake Dominic Cruz thing across.
Yeah,
whatever.
the little blow up head.
A little blow up head, but so a little bit of excitement, a little bit more boisterous than I would have expected from the former Olympian. As far as that pick goes, Slumpbuster, you went with 53% for Dominic Cruz. So this was the closest one of the night.
Yep.
And I can see it. Both fighters have combined 4 losses between them. So what about you, Dre? Where are you feeling?
Yeah, so this is maybe going to be a little bit boring for our fans, but I'm exactly in line with you. And here's my reasoning is we've seen Cejudo beat some of the best fighters already. He doesn't have that much of an issue with guys that are taller than him because he's the shortest fighter in the UFC, right? Or at least tied for the shortest. But he packs some good power, and he keeps getting better. The first time that he had lost to Demetrius Johnson, he was actually still fairly new to MMA at that point.
Yeah.
And so now he just gets better and better and better. So he's constantly improving. And then you have that layoff for Dominic Cruz. We already saw Fabricio Verdum, how hard that 2-year layoff was on him. And I think the timing is going to be a little bit off for Dominic Cruz. It's always hard to just hop back into a sport after 2. Even if you have been training, even if he's been working out, running, doing whatever, sparring, it's still not the same as if you've actively been fighting.
Yeah. And then the main event, Ferguson versus Gaethje. Again, not the main event we wanted, but the main event that is good. Both these guys are talented. They're great fighters, and they both bring a lot of pressure against each other.
Yep.
Now, just because I think that Khabib and Ferguson is forever cursed, I'm going to say Gaethje wins this fight.
Really?
I'm going to go in the upset here. Woo! 84% of you pick Tony Ferguson. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
But I just believe that there's so much bad karma around this fight that the absolute worst possibility for the UFC is going to happen, and Ferguson is going to go down.
Wow, that is a ballsy pick, Juju. Actually, it's not. Gaethje is a former champion, I believe, in World Series of Fighting. He has knockout power, and I believe in that weight class, he lands the most significant strikes per minute. He lands like 8 or something significant strikes per minute. So to wrap this up, though, because this fight is about to get started, I'm going Tony Ferguson. I think he's got a more diverse skill set. He uses more options. Whereas Gaethje, even though he was an all-American wrestler, he just likes to just stand and bang, and he doesn't move his head very well.
Yeah.
And that puts him in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And I will say this. I know that Ferguson, what it's going to come down to is who could back down who first.
Yep.
Like if and someone can get backed up on their heels, then I think that's where the advantage is going to go. And I think it's a fight that could go very early.
I agree. This is one of those fights I think can end in either a knockout or one of those submissions, right, where you guys are going, you slip, or somebody gets caught and you spin behind them, you rear naked choke or something like that.
What's going to be the big thing for this fight, I think, because we know how great of a motor that Ferguson has.
Yep.
Gaethje, you have to end him early.
Yeah, have to.
Because there's only so many significant strikes you can take, and if you are battling up close and personal like that fight's going to be, I don't see that being a favor for Gaethje.
So, all right, well, we are going on to the Greg Hardy fight, and it is about to start.
So the favorite in this fight, according to Vegas, is Greg Hardy at 210, negative 210. So, that's
pretty heavy favorite.
But like it's for all the reasons we said. People have a lot of faith in Hardy. They believe that he could potentially be the future at the heavyweight division. Now, it is controversial. Like we said, there is off-the-field issues, off-the-gun issues, too. Okay.
So what's really interesting, I think they have the ring card girls. I don't know if Brittany is the only one there, but I think they're social distancing the ring card girls because she was sitting by herself in a chair.
Gotcha. Oh.
De Castro
Greg Hardy's, Greg Hardy's swinging wild. So De Castro is really going for it. He knows he wants to back down Hardy.
Yeah, and this is what I was saying is De Castro is still a really hard hitter. He has a lot of knockouts. So if you look at his win percentage and like the knockout, so he has 100% win percentage, but the knockout rate is tremendous for the UFC.
Now, Hardy kind of has an interesting, unique stance. So he's always kind of like hunched over like that.
Yeah, I think it's because he's so tall. I think he's 6'5" or something like that. And
it is worrisome, though, if like he doesn't leave him a little bit more exposed.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, he's got his chin forward a little bit more, right, than we see a lot of our other fighters. So
let's see here. I think, though, if Hardy has a bigger motor on him, so if you let De Castro punch himself out like this, then that's going to work in your advantage as this fight kind of goes on. He's going to wear himself down.
Yep. And he's been swinging hard. He's been swinging for the fences. Like every shot that he's throwing, whether it's a kick, just like there, right? He just threw a leg kick, or a punch, he's doing it at his hardest. And you can do that for the first round, but as you get into the second and into the third, it becomes a lot harder.
Yeah. Like I said, so Hardy's kind of taking the same approach he did in his last fight. He's kind of letting De Castro come to him, which goes against what he was doing when he was first earning his UFC contract.
Yep.
In those fights, he was definitely the one applying the heat, applying the pressure. Here he goes a little bit now, starting to get a little bit of action in. Let's see here. I think he's just, like I said, just waiting for De Castro to wear himself down and went picking his spot here.
Yeah, and I think we can already start to see De Castro slowing. So his swings, they don't have as much pop to them, right? He even landed a leg kick recently. Doesn't have the same pop that it once did when he first started coming out.
Yeah. Hardy's definitely going to have more energy as this goes on because he has expended less.
Yep, exactly. And the thing is, right, on the judges' scorecards, I would say De Castro is probably winning right now, this round. But we'll see how long that lasts, right? As we're getting in. So now we're about halfway through that first round. We might see De Castro start to taper off. He's going to start to fall backwards a little bit as far as conditioning and energy wise, just because he's been swinging so hard at everything.
Now, I know myself, I'm going to deduct points for Hardy on that unfinished tattoo on his back. I don't know if quarantine happened right when he was finishing that tattoo and didn't get a chance to get it finished up, but it is kind of an eyesore whenever he turns.
Yeah, I know. It is a little bit bad. You would think these guys have enough money, though, that they could pay their tattoo artists.
Take a private one, get a private barber and all that stuff.
I definitely need one, so get some clippers.
Fortunate enough, I actually managed to get a haircut here.
Yeah, I see. You are one of the few lucky ones. I
know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a girl who does great haircut.
Yeah, those back alley haircuts. that's what I need.
Front porch haircut, actually,
So, yeah, no, I think this is a good fight so far. It's going pretty much how I thought it would. They're all
methodical.
Yeah, they're all standing on the feet. I do think De Castro is winning this round, though, just from throwing bigger punches, or I guess bigger strikes in general, and he's landed a few more.
He's taking more shots, but, let's see here. I'm interested to see if Hardy can – Hardy's digging in now.
Head movement, too.
Hardy's digging in. He hasn't backed up against the cage. Watch out, watch out.
Yeah, what I really like in these exchanges is Hardy's head is moving back and forth. So he gets in range, throws that strike, then he gets out of range really, really quickly. And De Castro missed all of those counter shots that he was trying to throw.
Here's the interesting thing I'm wondering for Hardy is where he's going to take that next step as a fighter. Where he's going to add in some submissions, some grappling. Because obviously, when you look at that heavyweight division, Brock Lesnar had an advantage when he was coming in that he was a former All-American wrestler himself, an All-American collegiate wrestler. Well, Hardy doesn't have that. Hardy, just like I said, he's a straight brawler. He's a physical guy. Comes from, kind of a rough upbringing, and he's bringing that to the octagon here. Taking out all that aggression.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And honestly, ground fighting is so difficult to learn, especially as you get older, that it may never come, right? And if we look at Holly Holm, that's always been where her sort of flaws were. And honestly, if Ronda Rousey had been able to maybe attach and throw her like she did with everybody else, Holly may have lost that fight. But Holly's just been so good on feet, that's where she wins most of her matches. Yeah. But when she made that transition to MMA, it's just so much harder to... Exactly.
Brock did the reverse. He had to add the striking. And for a guy that big, a guy as athletic as Brock, his striking kind of comes natural to him. And when he strikes, it hurts. It's a vicious one. I've actually saw him, whenever he messes around in the WWE, he actually brings some real shots in, man. I tell you.
Yeah, and it would hurt. And that's the thing is, it's so much easier to learn how to throw a correct punch than it is to learn how to move your hips and throw a correct armbar. Like that, they're a world of different, and it's way more difficult to learn how to move on the ground than it is to learn how to throw a punch.
But that's the thing. Hardy needs to learn that skill set if he wants to advance, if he wants to take home some gold, it needs to happen because let's face it. You look what it did in Brock in his UFC debut. Frank Mir caught him in a football.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and that's the thing with Hardy too is like he's so big that if he can get somebody to the ground and stay out of submissions, he can end the fight. Looks like Hardy. Okay, he was babying that lead leg a little bit, so I think that DeCastro is doing some damage with those leg kicks.
I'm impressed that he does have some kicks to his game, though. He did rely on some front kick combos after landing some punches.
Yep.
So he does have like a basic like skill set that he's starting to like work on. Like it used to just be straight punt.
Yeah.
Now he's mixing in some kicks, some front kicks, some low kicks.
Yep. Yeah, he threw a roundhouse to the head. It didn't land, but like that's pretty impressive for a big guy.
Absolutely.
6'5" and
the thing about heavyweight, it only takes one hit.
Yep.
So let's see here.
Yeah, DeCastro's doing a really good job. I'm really impressed with DeCastro right now, but I'm impressed with Hardy too. Like I said, those exchanges with his head movement were almost flawless on his part. He didn't get clipped at all, but he was able to get in and strike. So
now, when they've been in close quarters, I think the advantages have gone to Hardy.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
But when you've at distance, if he needs to back him up, because that was working in the first round, I think if he could get him into one of these corners here, he could potentially end him.
Yep. Yeah. Hardy's left leg is pretty beat up right now. You just heard Joe Rogan talking about it, but you could see that swelling. It's all red and puffed up.
Look at his leg, bro.
His leg.
Look at his leg. If you don't know what that is, we're making fun of you, Israel Adesanya.
Yeah. There was actually one fight early 2000s. I remember it was one of my first UFC fights that I was watching, or at least in the dozens that I watched early on. And Joe Rogan, for some reason, the only his favorite word of the night was legs. So everything would be like, look at the legs. He was talking about GSP in one of them. Yeah. GSP is a freak of nature and has huge legs. And he'd be like, look at GSP's legs. And then there'd be leg kicks. And he'd be like, look at that leg. That leg's all beat up. So he said leg probably 1,000 times in that night.
In fairness, here we're doing live commentary. I could understand it. You get locked on one thing in your mind and just a leg, Kyle Yushek.
Yep.
Booker McFarland, you're getting made fun of now too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, to I guess sort of add some analysis to that leg, that could be really detrimental, right? It's his lead leg, so it's going to be a little bit harder to move. It's more exposed as well to those leg kicks, and so we're seeing Hardy sort of baby it a little bit more so he can move it out.
This has been a more plodding round too. You talked about head movement. That was pretty nice, too. Hardy just evaded 2 quick strikes to the head.
Mm-hmm.
So good job on him for doing that, despite the injury to his lower half.
Yep.
Okay. Quick sweep. Okay.
Yeah. I really am impressed with Hardy's head movement. I think he leaves his hands still a little bit too low for my liking, but he makes it work for him, though.
If he does face a more athletic big man that can throw in a head kick, that could be a problem.
It could be a major issue, but he's able to move his head so quickly. I'm really, really impressed with him.
Okay. Hard kick.
Yep. Good combination. So he threw right leg kick and then followed back up with sort of a jab.
Oh, he's going for broke there. I feel like with that contusion to his leg, though, it does kind of give away those kicks, those big roundhouse kicks that he's going for.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you don't want to kind of give that away.
Yeah. And I will say a leg kick, if you've never experienced it, it is one of the worst pains. It's a weird thing, right? Your liver shot will hurt. If you get hit in the body, yes, that's going to suck. When you get punched, knockouts from what I understand, and I've been dazed in times that I've done sparring. I've never been fully knocked out. But I hear that one actually doesn't hurt. It's sort of just the light goes off and then you wake up and you're like, what happened? And it's sad, right? And you're disappointed or whatever. And you emotionally it hurts. But physically, those leg kicks are they suck. And they last a long time because you've got to walk around on it, right? If you get hit to the liver, it sucks that night. You wake up and you're fine as long as it's not lacerated, right, from a heavy kick. But your legs, they will stay bruised for weeks on end, and you got to move around on them.
Well, listen, I get it. One of my buddies, right, taking home from the bar, right, and he was like, "No, you can't drive," and no, it's completely damn so, right? Mm-hmm. So he kick speeded the fucking leg, the fucking asshole. I'm trying to give him a ride home because he's a drunk ass.
Yeah. Just loads up and whack.
Get in the damn car, Landon. Get in the car. I don't care. I'm going to call name drops here.
Yeah.
Landon,
we're calling you out.
I'm calling you out, man. You gotta respect your sober drivers and not try and severely damage their lower half. Though I will say that was a pretty firm leg strike, and honestly, if you were potentially interested in a fighting career, you do have an option there. Some drunken boxing.
Yeah. All right, Landon. So we're hoping to see you here at the UFC here pretty soon.
Exactly. Not with these big boys.
Not with these guys. So round 2 has officially ended. They're icing down that leg, especially of Greg Hardy. It's funny that they mixed up the names. So they got Jeremy Steven and Calvin Guitar. So they're one fight a little bit too early.
Yeah, and a few different shades of pigment and a couple weight class difference.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Get it together, ESPN Plus. Come on.
I know.
What is Dre paying for?
Exactly. I'm paying $65 for this. So real quickly, who do you think won that second round?
I mean, Hardy did get in some decent combinations in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you definitely know that DeCastro didn't land as many significant blows as he did in that first one. Yep. So I'm going to give that one to Hardy. So I'm going to go split right now.
Yep. I'm 100% in agreement with you. I thought Hardy pushed the pace more the last one.
Oh, now he really pushing the pace.
Yeah, he's pushing the pace in this one. So I'm going to say it's 1-1. DeCastro won the first one. And Hardy right now is doing a good job, but DeCastro is sort of getting upset, right? He's starting to throw it back now.
Well, more sporadic movement, more head movement going on by Hardy. He's definitely coming into this round pissed, and he wants this victory. So he's going to try and leave no dispute when the judge is trying to get this, because I'm not feeling this will go to knockout at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so, right? Like there could be just one of those late things where I shouldn't say you forget to block, you just don't react or whatever. And that could potentially be the knockout. But it doesn't look like it's going that way. We haven't seen anybody eat too big of a shot just yet.
Not yet. But let's see here. As we move into the final 4 minutes of this match, I'm going to be intrigued to see what they do.
Mm-hmm. Hardy really should start learning some takedowns. Like with how athletic he is and playing in the NFL, if he learned like just a good blast double, like I'm not talking about, single legs and knee picks or any of that, like just a blast double.
Well, you would think that skill set actually would transfer over, the idea behind form tackling.
Yeah, it's very similar, right? Like you're getting your hips in, you're wrapping up. I think he would be fantastic if he learned some double legs.
Now, this man had double-digit sacks in the NFL in his rookie year, so he's no joke.
Yeah, and a lot of it, like your head position is very similar on a tackle, right? Like you're making sure you're not injuring your neck. Same thing on double leg takedowns. Like there's times where you put your head right in the middle on a double leg takedown if you're just blasting through, or you might put it to the outside so you can lift. I think Hardy would do a fantastic job learning a few takedowns.
Exactly. He could take him out, just straight spear people.
Yeah, and then just start going to work on top. Now, we talked about how you get locked on a subject. Yeah, there's 3 minutes left. Hardy did eat another pretty big leg kick. He's got to start learning how to check those because that's going to hurt tomorrow.
For sure, and I would hate to see this match decided on the leg kicks.
I know, yeah. And it looks like it's slowed Hardy down a little bit. He's still pushing the pace, I think, a little bit more than DeCastro is at this moment.
Well, he's only got 2.5 minutes, so we got to start seeing some work here. Okay, a little bit of an interaction in the center of the octagon.
Yep, in and out. Again, Hardy has that great head movement.
Oh, get him!
Right there.
Get him jumping.
He's got to watch the up kick, though. I think
fair enough. If you are an experienced grappler, like Hardy is, though I don't know what these like little gut slaps are doing for him.
I know. I think it's actually more dangerous for where Hardy is right now because he's sort of hunched over in that stance, and he does leave his head open a little bit more for up kicks. Now, DeCastro is kind of chubby for the weight class, so I don't know how much power he can really get in that up kick, and because it does take a lot of like ab and core strength to throw a really good up kick.
Now you see, for people that aren't like avid UFC fans or MMA fans, if they were watching this out of context, DeCastro laying on his back while Hardy just kind of circles around him might look a little bit strange to some.
Yeah, exactly.
As these are both sweaty men.
Yeah, I'm sure you can make a weird Pornhub caption out of it.
Oh, just put Brazzers right there in the bottom half, and
Exactly.
you're good to go. This is going to be one of those awesome memes that we always drop at the Slumpbuster.
Exactly. 6'5" black man prepares to mount other ebony, smaller ebony person.
Ebony, that the go-to category.
That is the go-to category.
All right, we're down here to the final minute here. This round has been kind of slow paced. No one has really landed too much significant.
Mm-hmm.
There's the interactions in the first 30 seconds, but since then the pace has slowed severely. Obviously, De Castro had that slip. You wouldn't consider it a knockdown or a takedown. It was just a slip.
Mm-hmm.
And Hardy didn't know what to do with guard. So, again, we talked about him adding an extra element to his game.
Yep.
Adding some new tools. That's one that he needs to look in, because when he is in that position, when you have your opponent on the ground, you need to know what to do.
Exactly. And you have such an advantage if you're the person on top, at least in MMA, right? In Jits, you can argue that sometimes guard is better. But when you're on top in MMA, you can rain down some hard punches. And with how tall he is, he can posture up really well and rain some really, really hard punches.
Oh, if there's a man you don't want ground and pounding you, I would say Greg Hardy would be in the top 10.
Exactly. He learns how to throw some elbows, some punches from up top, hammer fist.
All right, so 3 rounds. This is going to decision. God, it's going to be a close one. Based off the leg strikes and everything, they might give it to Castro.
You think so? You think? Look at his leg. Look at his leg. No, I'm going to go with Hardy on this one. So I think Hardy won rounds 2 and 3. De Castro, without a doubt, in my mind, won round 1. But we'll see.
Let's see. I mean, there was that first 30 seconds where you could argue of who got the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
If they wanted to deduct anything for the slip.
Yeah, I think slips definitely should not count. Like, had it been an actual takedown, even like a knee pick, right? So had like Hardy just blocked the leg and pushed him over.
Yeah,
I would say that counts as a takedown. But here it was just a slip, and Hardy didn't use it much, right? So
okay, so it shows some positive stuff for Hardy right here.
Yep, really good head movement. Like I said, that's what I've been most impressed with Hardy is his ability to get in and out of striking range.
Well, the cool thing about Hardy, he has shown a quick ability to turn around, in his fights. Oh,
all right, here is the official decision.
All digital mortgage. Visit rate.com now. Bruce Buffer to make it official.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for decision. All 3 judges scored this contest 30-27 for the winner by unanimous decision, Greg.
Wow.
Going to Greg Hardy, so he now moves on to 6-2 in his MMA career. Let's see here what Joe has to say.
He made some adjustments, some big adjustments. Seems like early on in the fight, he was catching you with a lot of those heavy leg kicks. How much did that affect your movement?
Big time, man. Thank God for out in the crowd. Shout out to DC. I heard him tell me about checking. He's figure out how to check it.
Yep. Gotta learn how to check.
You have had a wild ride. In 2 years, you've gone from a guy who has his first MMA fight to a guy who's fighting guys like Volkov, who's a world champion in other divisions. What has this been like for you, and how do you feel about this victory?
Like going to Disney World, man. It's been a roller coaster like none other, man.
Don't think you can right now, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Not allowed.
Congratulations to you, sir. Look forward to seeing you again. Greg Hardy, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, well, wonder what's next for Greg, So 6-2. His only losses have been in controversial fashion. Dana White likes to capitalize on the names at the right time.
Yep.
Do you think that he could potentially throw Greg in for gold?
I think it's still a little bit too early. And this is what the UFC, I think, does better than any other of the major MMA organizations, is they know when, hey, they're still too raw versus, okay, now it's time to pound.
Hold up. I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
They threw CM Punk in a main event.
That's true, but the reason why I think they threw CM Punk, it technically wasn't the main of the card, but it was a big card. The reason why
they put him as the one to sell the pay-per-view, though.
The reason why I think they did that, though, is because they knew CM Punk was going to be awful. So it's like your only time to make money off him is his first fight. So you might as well throw him in a big fight.
I don't think they thought he was going to be really awful per se.
I thought he was going to be awful.
Well, why I say that is because they gave him that second fight, against
Yeah.
like a lower competition.
Mhm.
Who was the first fight against Mickey Gall?
Mickey Gall. Yep.
Yeah.
That was Mickey Gall.
And Mickey Gall, like one of the more talented fighters in the division. So that was kind of just a huge mistake on the UFC.
Yeah, that one was really mismanaged. If you've got somebody with name recognition, you have to give them somebody that you know they're better than, but that you can say, hey, look, they actually might look all right, when you know that, no, that person is actually garbage. And I hate to say that about any fighter, but there's just some fighters that like this person isn't that great comparatively, right? And
Joe said it before on his podcast, the problem with what they did with CM Punk is like you took a guy who literally didn't have any combat sport experience besides the professional wrestling world, and you threw him against like a guy who has been fighting at a competitive level for a while. You don't just go from picking up a baseball bat to playing in the major leagues.
Absolutely not.
So,
doesn't matter how good of an athlete you are.
Yes.
Like it just doesn't work that way.
I'm sure if you told me maybe they gave like CM Punk like a couple light intermediate fights here, like lower level, then fine, and then maybe in like 2-3 years for someone at Mickey Gall's level, that would make sense.
Yeah, what I think they basically should have done is basically taken an amateur and gave him the professional tag.
Well, the problem with CM Punk though is you're talking about a guy who was already pushing 40 at the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like they were probably like a little pressure on them as far as like the clock, the biological clock was ticking there.
So they got to get somebody, right?
Exactly. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna take a break during this commercial break.
Yeah, no problem.
Great, talk to the people.
Yeah, I'll keep things going. And in fact, I think this is a really interesting point that we're talking about is what makes the UFC so much better than, let's say, Bellator and one, the promotion and marketing, and they've been in the market longer. The UFC was the first to sort of do this MMA type stuff. And then, there was Pride and all that. But so one, they were the first to get to market, and that allowed them to gather up that market share. But the other thing is the mismanagement of fighters. It doesn't happen all that much by the UFC. They know when to capitalize on people. They know when to give them easy fights, when to give them hard fights to make them look really, really good. And so even Sage Northcutt, for instance, he's no longer in the UFC, but when he was first in the UFC, he was getting paid quite a bit of money. And they knew, hey, we're going to feed this guy really easy fighters, pretty easy fighters. And everybody sort of knew it, and they would comment, right, on Facebook posts or whatever. Oh, you're just giving Sage Northcutt a really easy fight, or you're just trying to fluff up his record. And that's exactly right. That's exactly what the UFC was doing. And you were going to tune in anyways to watch it. Either one, you didn't believe in Sage Northcutt, so you're going to tune in to see him get knocked out, or two, you thought he was the greatest thing and you believed the hype, and you're like, hey, Sage Northcutt is great, and he's knocking out all these people, even if they weren't necessarily the most competitive when it comes to the UFC. So the UFC does that really well. Another example that I'll take from Bellator where they mismanaged a fighter is Aaron Pico. So Aaron Pico, a lot of people probably don't follow high school and college and international wrestling, but Aaron Pico, when he was in like junior year or something, it might have even been his sophomore year, and I'm talking high school, not even college. He was a high schooler. He was able to beat guys that were wrestling at a world champion level. So he was really into freestyle wrestling, even more so than his collegiate or folk style wrestling. And he would literally wrestle against Russian national team opponents. He was beating All-Americans from college while he was in high school. And then Aaron Pico was also going to be like he had been a Golden Glove award winner or champ in California. So Aaron Pico was really talented. He probably could have been one of the best MMA fighters that we would have seen, but they decided to throw him in right away against a really experienced fighter. And I understand from the camp's perspective, they were like, hey, throw Aaron in. We believe he can beat anybody. But unfortunately, they mismanaged that, and the guy Aaron Pico ended up fighting was able to knock him out right away. Whereas what Bellator should have done is say, hey, we've got Pico, we've got him signed. What we're going to do is give him a really easy fight that we know, hey, there's basically no way that he ever loses this. And then you slowly start to build him up. Because at that point, Pico really hadn't had an MMA fight at all. It had been his first ever MMA fight. And you have this really talented prospect that gets knocked out just because he's fighting somebody that just has much more experience, knows the sport of MMA a lot more, whereas Pico just had wrestling and boxing. So UFC, you're doing a really great job with this. Bellator and ONE, that's sort of where you guys have to learn your lessons of how do we manage these up-and-coming stars. What up, Juju? You're back.
Very powerful piss break. And I
hope
so
you
just
feel
talking
me.
about mismanaging stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I talked about Aaron Pico's career. He was one of the brightest stars coming out of wrestling. I actually do wish he would have stayed in wrestling. And we're talking, like I said, like folk style wrestling.
Well, we know the problem is two people that wrestled in high school. There's a peak for wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
and like unless you like are Olympic gold medalists and everything, it's just like you run your course quick.
Exactly.
One of the things you can do because really the only thing you can do after a certain point is coach wrestling.
Yeah, and Pico was smart, and he realized, like, hey, I'm not going to get paid. Like, if I go to college to wrestle, that's 4 more years of wear and tear on my body where you're cutting weight literally every weekend, if not twice a week for duels when there are midweek duels. And so he's like, do I want to put my body through that much stress for 4 more years to not get paid, maybe win a national championship, but again, I'm not getting paid? Or do I want to try freestyle for a little bit, see if I make the team? If I don't, then I go to MMA and I start making bank. And he had a Nike sponsorship. I don't know if he still is sponsored by Nike or not, but he was one of the few MMA fighters. So the fighters that I know of that were sponsored by Nike were Anderson Silva, John Bones Jones, Ronda Rousey, and Aaron Pico. So you had never fought before, and you're sponsored by a sponsor that has only sponsored other champions. Like, come on, it was the right choice in my opinion for Aaron.
I agree with you. I get what you're saying on that one. So let's see, Jeremy Stevens versus Kelvin Qatar, matchup of the 7th and 9th ranked featherweights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's see here.
Yeah, and this is why I'm saying it's a little bit of an upset to pick Qatar just going based off the rankings. But interestingly, the rest of the country seems to agree with us that they think Qatar is gonna win this one.
Well, it's like hard to really measure the rankings sometimes.
It is.
It's an inexact science. I mean, because sometimes the better fighter just gets clipped, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Oof, that's brutal leg kick there.
Yeah.
Head kick.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is the UFC. The other thing that the UFC is really good with is moving their rankings so that they can have the guys that they like that are promotable a little higher in the rankings. And so does that make me upset? Yes, because as a martial artist, right, and a competitor, I want to know who truly is the best, right? And I want to see like, hey, I'm number one and I'm number one for a reason. And so sometimes there's guys that are undeserving of it. But the UFC does it so well because they're basically pushing a product, and it's like you want to see the guy that's the number 1 fighter or the number 2 fighter, not the guy that's the number 10 fighter. Even if the 2 is not as good as the number 10, it's like we're going to make him 2 just because his brand name and his recognizability.
Gotcha. Quick prediction here: are we going to see a finish in this one, or is this going to decision?
So I chose Qatar. Let me pull up some stats real quick. I think it'll probably be
with some quick stats.
I think it'll probably be decision.
Let's see here.
But we will see. Calvin Qatar.
Hey, Great White. This is MMA Dre right here. So combat sports, it's got you covered. Even though you said that his voice sounds like a mixture of Seth MacFarlane and some drunk frat dude or something like that.
I take that as a compliment.
See, I'm the drunk frat dude.
Yeah, you really are the drunk frat dude.
Well, damn, call me fat.
I said frat. My bad.
I mean, same.
Both
I agree right now. I'm struggling with my body image and hoping that in time, when gyms hopefully reopen. In Texas, they're talking about May 18th. So if it's May 18th, first thing I'm getting down there, gym it is. Gymming it up.
Yeah. So they're both such good fighters. I think I'm gonna go with there will be a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But both guys have tremendous
he's
knockout.
A cupper.
He is a cupper. So
have you gotten into the cupping trend?
I have not. I haven't tried it, though. I had some friends that did try it in China when it was brand new, and I was like, what the heck is that? And they said they loved the feeling of it, and they would do it again.
I don't know, man. I just would hate to feel like, these big old blotches on my skin like that.
Giant hickeys. And,
Exactly. I'm
So,
not opposed to those, but...
No, I really am excited for
the
this
right
fight,
place.
though. I think, Stevens has incredible knockout power, but so does Qatar. He lost his last fight, Qatar, that is, to Khabib Nurmagomedov, or however the heck you say it. But that dude is freaking good. Those Russians are really coming up, and I'm excited because
would you say that's harder than Khabib or Ngannou?
They are both pretty dang hard to say. I don't know how to say them, but if you watch MMA 101, right, that series that we've got with new episodes coming out, I'm gonna get into some of the upcoming countries. And Russia, you need to keep an eye out. So start learning how to say these Russian names.
In fairness, Russia has always been great at wrestling. When you talk about the Soviets versus the U.S., the Soviets definitely had their run of glory back in the 80s, the 70s.
Yep.
So, you can't dismiss that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So even like the Middle Eastern countries, too, have had their runs of dominance within the wrestling community.
Yeah. All those, basically that entire Russian bloc, that former Soviet Union bloc, all the way down into the Middle East, like you were saying. Even though those countries all split apart, they're still basically Russians, right? That were always good at wrestling and sambo and all these other martial arts. So.
And some people are just Russian for an ass kicking.
Yeah, exactly. If you fight some of these Russians, that's what's gonna happen.
Well, if you listen to Tony Ferguson, if Khabib was here tonight, he would be in for a good old American ass kicking.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting one. We'll see if that fight ever does happen. I'm
scared to see if that happens.
I'm
I'm scared of what can happen next if we see that fight scheduled again.
There'll be a rip in the space-time continuum.
Oh, God. At this pace, with the kind of insanity that is happening anytime that fight has been scheduled.
Oh, yeah.
God bless.
It is insane.
Maybe after this fight, too, for those that are the unwashed masses that haven't seen MMA 101, you could kind of explain some of the stuff, data that you pulled up for weight cutting. It's a very interesting topic, very well done. I highly recommend watching the original video. But if you are watching with us in between fights, Drake, educate. Yeah,
absolutely. So something, the first episode that we did with MMA 101, so you can find that on my YouTube channel at MMA Dre. What we basically looked at was weight cutting and the reason why. So weight cutting is really popular in all combat sports, be it wrestling, boxing, MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, all of that stuff. But the reason guys do it is to get basically a size and strength advantage. And what we found is that reach and height really only play a really big role in the upper weight classes. So I'm not saying it doesn't play a role in these smaller weight classes. It's just not as predominant, not as necessary. So you can be a shorter fighter at 135, 145 and be able to overcome that reach and height disadvantage just because those little guys don't pack as much power combined with their reach. But as you get bigger, like we even saw with Greg Hardy, right? That was one of my main concerns with De Castro is that Hardy was just so much longer, so much bigger that when he throws that hard punch and there's that extra few inches, that could be really dangerous for you.
Who is this great white person? Well, I'm not the one that's going to be the one to dox you there. So, intermingle in the chat if you care to have your identity exposed. We're not going to be the ones to do it.
I know. Well, Great White, thank you for that compliment. So I will admit I am not as good. So he's like, hey, your combat stuff is really good. I will say that is my specialty. I know I'm doing my best at football and basketball and stuff like that. At baseball,
we all have our strengths. I'm obviously the baseball guy, and that's why I had a great show with Baseball Vibes. Those guys are fantastic. And anytime there's a baseball topic, I'm happy to take it off everyone's hands there. MMA, this is the guy. I'll admit, I'm a little bit more casual on it. I feel like my combat sport experience began and ended with my high school wrestling career. But, I was always something kind of on the side. So that's one of my favorite things that we've ever done for the channel. Was whenever we did the Get Your Popcorn for the Tito vs. Chuck documentary.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good one because it was very insightful about learning about the early days of UFC. Now, we're about to start getting into the Stevens guitar fight. So here we go. About me in the middle. So let's get it.
Yep. So Jason Herzog. Jason Herzog is actually a really, really good ref. So I really like him.
And that's a really, really great video.
Yeah, that's Brittany Palmer. Again, looks like she is social distanced. She is literally in a folding chair, just off on her own. So,
I do find it kind of hilarious that the UFC kind of made them even come out here.
Yeah.
It does seem like, okay, so we're not bringing in all these other people. Ring girls still must. I mean, I get it. You're appealing to the visual element, the TV viewers. So I guess there's that, right?
It does look like she's the only ring girl that's there, though. At least from what I've seen. Normally they have them.
They had the brunette. They had the blonde tonight.
Did they? Did they have two of them?
I just swear I saw a different girl from the first fight.
So I may be wrong then, but I can tell you that they are definitely sitting off on their own, which would kind of suck. Like unless they really like fighting, maybe they do.
Well, you would think you would have to enjoy the sport a little bit to even have that job.
Yeah.
You know, like I aside from being a model and everything like that, I'm sure that they've grown accustomed to seeing these fights. I mean, you have to sit there. You might as well take enjoyment in your work.
Yeah, and honestly, like if I'm those ladies, right, and I'm attracted to men. Some of these guys are good-looking dudes. Like they've all got six packs.
Well, in fairness, I'm pretty sure they're probably under the same rules as stuff like NFL cheerleaders, like want to intermingle. So I'm sure they are off doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, hey, like I said, hopefully maybe they just enjoy the sporting element of it.
Yeah. So to get into the fight a little bit, though, so we are about a minute and a half into the first round. Stevens opened up with some pretty good combinations, had Qatar backed up against the cage for a little bit, but was quickly able to move off, circle, get his back towards the center of the octagon. And now I think Qatar has been pushing the pace a little bit more. But you could tell that he's still wary of Stevens' power, and Stevens definitely packs a punch. He's moving forward a little bit more. So,
okay.
Yeah, good combinations from both guys, though. I really like the action that we're seeing.
Let's see here. Stevens about to get slumped. Okay. Steven.
Yeah, we will see. I've got Qatar picked in this too, so I think you might be right on that one.
Qatar's about to bust some slumps around here. So.
And Qatar, that's the thing I like about him is he moves so well. So he throws those combinations, moves out of the way. Right there, we saw him just circle off the cage again. So again, he's got to start checking those kicks too. He's got to be like Greg Hardy and learn how to check because those will hurt.
They'll add up. It's a war of attrition, ain't it?
Mm-hmm. So they're good. They're still sort of feeling that range out a little bit. Stevens has been pretty successful so far with some of those leg kicks.
Pretty methodical at this point. Mm-hmm. Nothing too intense.
Yeah, I think they both are understanding of the power that each of them possess at this weight class, right? Yeah. They're two of the probably the best knockout artists here in this weight class.
A little bit of tie-up just there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Stevens landed a really good right hand, so a really good right hook coming out of it to the head.
Checking each other's legs.
Yep. Exchange leg kicks.
We got about a minute 40 left in this bout.
So like I said, I like Qatar's movement. I think his footwork is a little bit better than Stevens, but Stevens pushes forward and just hits so hard.
Nice leg kicks there. Let's see.
Ooh, it's a good little jab. Jab from Stevens, that is. Okay, he checked that one. So I think Stevens knew, like, all right, I'm not going to throw this one my hardest. He saw him lifting that knee up, going to check it.
And we hope you guys are actually able to watch the pay-per-view tonight. But in the event you are not, we are hoping that certainly our commentary is sufficing at the moment.
Yep. Yeah, and apologies, we can't show you the screen. We wish that we could for all our live viewers, but we don't want YouTube to smack us.
Don't want YouTube to smack us. I'm pretty sure Dana White wouldn't be too happy about it either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get involved with Dana White. He's a bit of a crazy man.
Yep, exactly. Now, that's not stopping you necessarily from downloading it illegally. But I'm not promoting that.
I'm not promoting it, just saying you can. We are millennials, and that is an option that has been on the table.
Yep. That was actually a really good exchange. So there are some good back and forth. I saw Qatar get a few really good hits, and he's backing up Stevens now. I think Stevens is a little bit flustered. I could sort of see it in his face, and this is the most Stevens has backpedaled in this entire fight. So.
Oh, that was kind of a sloppy takedown attempt there by Qatar.
Yeah. Oh, Stevens caught the leg. I thought he was going to use it a little bit more.
He's got final seconds.
Oh, swinging for the fences. So that last
Stevens' face is, or Qatar's face is a little.
Yeah, I think that was a really tough round to score. Stevens started off, I think, stronger in that fight. But then in this round, Qatar ended it a little bit better for me. Who do you think won that first one?
I don't like to go off the last 10 seconds of a bout or a round.
Mhm.
So I'm going to give it to Stevens in that one because he had the better round overall.
Yeah.
Qatar, like you said, he did push the pace a little bit there at the end, but you recency bias can't just go off of that, right?
Yeah, and that's what I always try to do is, can I remove what just happened, even though I loved the action there at the end, and Qatar had great movement. His head, he was moving it in and out, and then he was coming back with strikes. We just saw a really good slow-mo punch to the jaw.
Just right in there.
Yep, and that's what started to back Stevens up. But again, I think Stevens overall impressed me more that round, and I think he was pushing the pace a little bit more.
All right, well, this big round coming back to Qatar. Let's see if he can keep that momentum up that he started in the latter half of the round.
Yeah, and we'll see how dazed Stevens really is, because like you said, that punch straight to the jaw looked pretty impressive. And
you can't take too many of those.
No.
You don't want to take too many of those.
Yeah, it was right down the pipe. It was beautiful, nice straight. So,
all right, Stevens coming in, low kick. Nice. Back him
from
up.
Stevens.
Nothing too special right now.
yep, yeah, Stevens was chasing a little bit on that one, missed the hook.
All right, we're about 30 seconds in.
Interestingly, Stevens is changing stances back and forth, so he'd go from orthodox to southpaw, back to orthodox now.
All right, Stevens starting to press a little bit.
Yeah, that was a beautiful slip from Qatar and then into an uppercut. So
Backing him up against the cage a little bit. Luckily, Qatar is starting to round out, back to the center.
Mm-hmm.
They are also sponsored by Manscaped.com.
Exactly.
So Manscaped, the #1 men's grooming brand. Go use that promo code SLUMP, get 20% off plus free shipping and handling.
Yep. Yeah. That just tells you how impressive of a brand Manscaped has become, right? You know, they of course still sponsor podcasts and YouTube channels just like ours, but now they're even sponsoring the UFC and they're right there on the canvas.
And,
right?
yeah, I think that definitely. That's why I appreciate our fans so much, because we're able to get sponsored by an impressive brand, like Manscaped.
Yep.
Thank you, Manscaped. We do appreciate you reaching out to us and working with us. And, you know, that's why we need to keep it up. So promo code SLUMP, keep pounding that promo code.
Yep.
Save some money. Save some money. Make your small balls not smell like shit. See, we like to talk ball. We don't like to smell like them.
Exactly. That's the most important part is you can always talk ball, just don't smell like it.
Exactly.
Oh, beautiful exchange. Nice. Qatar is piecing him up now. So great white.
Ooh.
You're good. Yeah, exactly. He was working that liver. And then now we just saw that good exchange. So there was that.
Oh, here we go.
Uppercuts.
Oh, Steven stringing on. Going for takedown against the cage. Nope.
Yeah. Ooh, good elbow. So straight over the top on the left side.
Now Qatar's starting to get the edge here. Stevens battled out nicely from that tie up there, that game press against the cage, but Qatar's got him all the momentum.
Oh, that was a
Solid
good
strike.
Yeah, good counter by Stevens though with that right hand.
Ooh! Oh shit! Oh! Round and pound. Round and pound. That's
Boom.
it. That's it.
Dang!
Oh!
I should have chosen that finish.
Oh God! I gotta see that in slow mo. He just rocked his world with that. Look! Oh my God! Look at the blood.
It was a beautiful hit, and that's the thing is Qatar's striking is just so crisp.
Did he get him in the jaw or did he get him in the face? Because
I want to say that he hit him in the jaw is what the knockdown was, and then while they're on the ground is when he started.
Okay, yeah, the ground and pound is probably when we got a little bit of that blood action going on here. But oh my God, at featherweight, he packed that wall up.
Yeah, that was a really, really impressive strike. And Stevens is like I said, known as one of the heavier hitters at 145.
Let's see. Oh my God, let's see this beauty. Okay.
Oh, it was the elbow.
So there's the elbow, but was that what dropped? Oh,
yeah,
man, it was. Okay.
It was the elbow to the teeth, basically.
Brought him in. Oof. Just
Yep.
God bless.
And then there's that punch to the eye.
And then more elbows, just bringing him down. And then those big rounding punches.
Yeah. No, it was definitely beautiful.
God, what you see again. when we talk about the Greg Hardy fight, it's like, jump on him, take advantage.
Yeah, because imagine if Greg Hardy had been able to do that and capitalize, right? Like even if he's like, okay, I'll hop and guard. You don't have to be in mount to be able to ground and pound. You can hit somebody really hard from being in full guard, even in a closed guard. You can still hit with a lot of power. And obviously, we saw it there. Qatar was just dropping bombs.
Oh man, here's Stevens. COVID isn't the only thing you have to worry about after that one.
Yeah, no, he's definitely going to need some stitches, and he'll be chilling in the hospital probably for a good few hours after.
So if you got CTE and you got COVID, is that like alphabet soup?
Got to collect all the letters.
Exactly. Got too many vowels. Got too many.
Yep. So yeah, no, this was a fantastic finish. This was, and man, with how many knockouts these guys both have, like I probably should have just said yeah. But I went decision. That was what I chose. But right now we're 2-0 on the night. So
oh my god, that cut above on his forehead there.
Yeah, that is a really, really nasty one.
That is not going to heal. That's going to scar up.
You need stitches for sure.
That's going to be a reminder of that time you got knocked the fuck out.
Yeah. No, it's so I think Qatar though, he's got to jump up now. So he's got to probably move up to number 7. I think we probably see Stevens fall back to 8 or 9, depending on how the people that are doing the rankings are going to rank him.
Give it Stevens. He's on his feet now. He's up and going. He's not dead, even though.
It was pretty bad. He was on the stool for a while, couldn't get up on his own. So
all right,
let's listen
see
to
what Joe has to say.
That was a spectacular knockout. You can see all the blood in the center of the octagon. Top first round, Jeremy came out fast and hard. Is that what you anticipated?
Yeah, but honestly, in my head, I think they're going to come out a lot harder. Yeah.
Good to start, man. Congrats, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Look
Thank
at that gash.
Listen, man, I was going to be honest.
Gigantic.
A little upset. He showed up 5 pounds overweight. You know,
remember that time that vagina formed on your head? That's exactly what happened there.
Yep. Motherfucker knows how to fight. And it's tough after exchange like that with somebody not showing respect.
Great way. That elbow
Fight,
just
that shit was great.
insane.
It was a wild
Yep.
fight. Let's take a look at the stoppage. Calvin, take a look at the big screen.
Yeah.
You caught him in this.
Yeah, we're gonna see it again.
In this
Beautiful
exchange,
elbow.
look at this right here. Just picture perfect.
Boom, right there to the
And then
teeth,
the
right under the
follow-up,
nose.
once you got him down, that was the big elbow that dropped him and cut open his lip. But the
He just, like,
forehead
bent
cut
back
from a
with
nasty
that
left
one, too.
elbow once you got him down to the ground.
That's how impactful that was. He didn't go to the side. He just folded back.
The elbow shout out to J Main on Typos.
Yeah, and that, like you said, that elbow on the ground, that left elbow that came rolling over the top, that's what really cut him above that eye.
I had 3-year layoff before I broke off the layoff for 2 fights, got in the UFC. And I've learned as I've been going, man. And I've been doing the tough fights. So I'm happy to be here. I feel like I said, I'm just scratching the surface. And these featherweights are in big trouble when I put this shit all together.
Congratulations, sir. Spectacular performance. Beautiful
Good lord.
Hey,
No, he
I think
definitely
so.
is.
Like you're saying, he's probably gonna jump up to 7 right now.
Probably
Probably just need one more big fight. UJ's probably the next challenge you probably put up for Qatar.
Let's see, at 145.
Ladies and gentlemen,
So Max Holloway, I think they'll probably give Max Holloway a rematch for the belt. So I don't think he would go against Holloway just yet. Let me take a look to see who else is there at UFC featherweight.
Quick show research.
Yeah, got to do it live. Who I think would be really fun to watch.
So as we're saying, manscaped.com. Check it out. Promo code SLUMP. Get 20% off plus free shipping. 20% off plus free shipping from the #1 men's grooming supply, manscaped.com.
Yep. So we already saw Qatar fight Zabit Magomed Sharipov, who, like I said, that dude is a monster. I think Zabit is probably the next in line for a championship, even above Qatar right now. But I wonder if he's fought Yair or Chan Sung Jung. I think that would be really good. So those guys are 4 and 5. So let's see. I don't think he has fought either of them. But I think those would be really, really fun fights to watch.
Gotta look at this fight, IMDb.
Yep. Because Yair Rodriguez is a really exciting fighter as well. He mixes things up. He did this really cool reverse elbow. He slipped a punch one time, and then threw like an elbow backwards and was able to knock a guy out with it.
Definitely sounds dirty.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. It was one of the most beautiful things. So yeah, he has not fought those two. So that's who I'm gonna say I think is next for Qatar. Is it's gonna be either Chan Sung Jung or Yair Rodriguez, and then I think that puts them into like top contender status. Besides Zabit Magomedsharipov.
All righty, now this physical specimen, this just Francis Ngannou. Just look at that guy's like insane, ridiculous build.
I mean, he's built like those 145ers we just saw,
Yeah.
except he is 245,
Like he
100 pounds more.
like he ate one of those 145ers.
I know. Like, I mean, it's just incredible. When you see heavyweights that are ripped, that's a scary dude. Like, I would not want to be fighting them.
Isn't that funny? Like when you think about like what it means to be like a heavyweight in like high school wrestling, for example.
Yeah,
it's just like
big
you
fat
be the
dude.
fattest dude on your squad, and then like once you get into these like advanced levels, or you advance to the college level, like every single
Ripped.
heavyweight is just
They are just ripped. It's insane. And then like I said, here in the UFC, you've got Stipe Miocic. What's funny is Daniel Cormier is a really successful heavyweight and light heavyweight, and he doesn't look that like strong or ripped.
Yeah.
But he knows how to move his body though. For sure.
Technique, you know, his speed, you know, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So he is deceivingly chubby, but he can beat you. But the rest of these guys, like they're freaking ripped. Like they're jacked. I mean,
Exactly.
even
DC
Greg
could beat
Hardy.
anyone but John Jones.
Yeah, literally. He beat everybody at light heavyweight except John Jones. And then he lost to Stipe, unfortunately. But he was winning much of that fight, I thought. had it gone to decision, DC probably beats Stipe.
Did they ever make a statement on John, like after the most recent arrest?
So I think he did. I think he said the UFC is not going to punish him. Like that, what John does is John's business. But it's weird because any other sport, I think John Jones is out of, right? Like,
Yeah.
At least suspended.
Like 3 strikes kind of deal. You know?
Exactly.
But like, yeah, Dana just, I mean, they're like basically independent contractors. So I guess that's why you can get away with it. But you would think you would hold your fighters accountable, especially like your marquee name talent, like John.
Yeah. So no, I think let's see. See him running right through the Korean Zombie. Yeah, I mean, so he's talking about Calvin Kattar. So Great White, you're talking about Calvin Kattar running through the Korean Zombie. I actually, from looking at this fight and his previous few, even his fight with Magomedsharipov that he lost, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think he can definitely beat the Korean Zombie, and I think he could do it pretty handedly. So you're spot on with that.
Who are they showing? GSP?
Yeah. So right now we're showing GSP, some of his highlights. We'll take a listen into this.
Just looked like the perfect fighter.
I was hearing he was thinking about making a little comeback attempt, like a one-off fight.
I hear that he's still got it.
Well, you know, like
He is the perfect fighting machine.
GSP was. So like one of the biggest, coolest things, I'll say UFC has kind of been a godsend during this time of COVID because they've been releasing a ton of free fights on their YouTube channel.
Yep.
And watching old school GSP stuff, like his takedowns, man.
Lightning.
Like his like blast doubles and everything like that. Like you're right, it's just literally like that. You're on the ground, and those guys cannot get up.
Yeah, he would just keep him there. And so to tell you, Juju, the story of how I got into junior wrestling, because you did it, you did junior wrestling for a long time.
Yeah.
I started freshman year, and one of the reasons why I started high school wrestling is watching GSP, because I was like, man, if that dude can handle grown men in that way,
Like, oh, that was like one of
that
those.
arm bar on Dan Hardy, yeah. So
Dan Hardy fight was. Kudos to Dan Hardy for not tapping out because he was that arm bar, and then I think he also got him in a leg lock or something too.
No, GSP controlled the entire fight. Like if he wanted to, he could have broke his arm and just completely snapped it. You know,
That is like the fine line about like MMA, right? It's like you can just straight up break people if you wanted to, but like most of these fighters have to respect. It's like, okay, you won't tap, I'll go to another submission to see like if I can get you this way.
Exactly. Unless you're Frank Mir and he doesn't care, and he'll just
snap
it. Like him and Rosamir Palhares was also sort of an asshole when it came to that stuff, especially with ankle locks. And the thing that's sad with that is and he would still crank it after they would tap, like a good 2 seconds after they would tap. Is if you've got an ankle lock and it's deep, right? Depending on like whether it's a heel hook or a straight ankle lock, but those heel hooks, you will tear up that knee, and you could basically rip ACLs and LCLs, MCLs, all that, or PCLs, whatever.
Yeah,
all the L's.
I mean, and you could end up in a situation like what we just saw with poor Alex Smith.
Yeah, and you don't want like those lower extremity issues, right? Because anytime you have breaks to the legs or the knees and damage, like that just limits your athletic ability from basically that point on.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this big shout out to GSP. Again, one of the greatest. In my opinion, I think GSP is the GOAT. I think he's the greatest of all time. I put him above Anderson Silva.
You look at his peak, peak GSP, like no one could stop him.
No, he was unstoppable. And he avenged the losses that he had. He had some really close fights with Johnny Hendricks. I will say that one. I thought the Johnny Hendricks fight, you could maybe say that was a little bit of a robbery for Hendricks, but there's no way Hendricks was on the same level as GSP. And GSP at that point had been doing it for years and years and years,
Yeah.
So, I in my opinion, I say GSP is the GOAT. I want to see Great White. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest fighter of all time?
That could be an interesting debate.
Let's see if he responds. He or she. I don't know. Sorry, Great White. I don't mean to offend you.
2020 can't assume things.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess with that you're just looking for who has the most dominating fights, right?
Oh, GSP versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Oh, sorry, Great White. So I will answer your GSP versus Khabib question. I was asking, who do you think is the greatest fighter of all time? So greatest fighter of all time for me is GSP. And so I'm going to actually say that I think GSP beats Khabib, though I'm not confident about that because Khabib is really freaking good.
I got to go with GSP myself, too.
You think GSP beats Khabib?
I mean, just that lightning quickness,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
if he
fast.
could get Khabib down, even as powerful as Khabib is, I don't think he could get back up. So I think the thing that he has probably the advantage in what Khabib does best, grappling.
Yep.
I think that's where, GSP's got the advantage. And GSP is not the worst striker in his own right, too.
Yeah, and GSP is actually a really smooth striker. Working with Firas Zahabi, I think really took him to the next level. He was fantastic here at Jackson's. So we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. GSP used to train at Jackson's gym, then went up to Canada, TriStar, which he's from Canada. And he has been fantastic ever since. GSP's striking, I think, is more crisp and clean and technical. I think he thinks about the sport slightly more technically than Khabib does, even though Khabib is a monster at it. So I agree. I think GSP wins that. Especially, we haven't seen Khabib have to defend takedowns. We've seen him do the takedowns. We've never seen him on the receiving end, and GSP has a little bit more athletic takedowns, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, dude. Seriously, if you just want to see a clinic, that Hardy fight was
just again in on his legs again.
He would just let him up just to be an asshole and take him back down again.
And you can't do anything about it,
You literally started off, I think, in the first 2 seconds of their third round, he had him, took him down and on his back.
Yeah. And what to me is incredible about GSP. So how we talk about ground fighting and takedowns is hard to learn. Is GSP had never done high school. Wrestling in Canada is not that big. There's not a whole lot of freestyle, not a whole lot of folk style.
Greatest fighter of all time, hands down, John Jones. Even though did not get caught cheating, I wouldn't take anything away from him. Let's see. I love Barry Bonds. Okay. I mean, I love Barry Bonds too. Go Barry. Go Team Barry. But the PED argument is probably one of your strongest cases against him.
Yeah. So Great White, I'm going to disagree with you there, and I've been very strong. So Juju, I think maybe more along the thinking of you, right? Of that, hey, John Jones, he deserves it. Me, in my opinion, I think once you've been caught using steroids or using these other supplements that sort of mask steroids, right? So the estrogen blockers in this last case, I personally think that rules you out of the conversation. So that's why I do not give it to John Jones, and I give it to George St. Pierre instead.
My thing on John, though, is like, unless we're assuming that every one of his fights he was just juiced to the eyeballs, and how can you like take away like some of those wins from him?
If they were outstanding.
You really can only take away maybe one of those Daniel Cormier fights. And even with that said, you put him against DC again, I think John's still winning it. He told me they are fighting next month. DC, John Jones. John Jones even coming out for his arrest. I'm still picking John.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's no way DC would ever lose to John Jones. I still think that there is something to like, if you had to do steroids, like would we know how good you are had you never done them, right? And it's hard to go back and trace. We don't know.
Because, again, it's because like, steroids, what are we going to say? Are you going to take like 3 wins away from him? 2 wins away from him?
Yeah.
They still are testing before these fights. So, like, you can only assume the ones in which he actually came up positive.
That is true.
That
is true. Yeah. No, I see the argument, and I'm not saying that John Jones is not great. And when we're talking in terms of fighting, I think John Jones was one of the first in this new wave of MMA where you're just crazy technical and you're coming up with new creative moves, like his spinning back elbow that he does with his reach.
Yes.
Like, I think there was a sports science that said his spinning back elbow is quicker than the blades of an Apache helicopter. Like, that's how quick he's rotating. So I do have to give John Jones that. As much as I personally don't like him, and as much as I'm like, no, I'm not going to give him GOAT status, I got to admit, like, he's a creative, technical, fantastic fighter.
Yeah, you're punishing him worse than Dana White's ever punished him.
Okay, so Great White says the steroids, in my opinion, didn't do much for him. There have been fighters that did steroids who never got as far as John did. And that is a good argument for John Jones, right? Is that, yes, steroids helps you and maybe it makes you stronger and you get a little bit more knockout power. But at the end of the day, the other half of fighting is you have to avoid being knocked out or taken down, and you have to still use the technique behind the fighting.
Well,
to generate the power.
Well, he mentioned Barry Bonds, right? And think about Barry Bonds. One of the arguments you can always say is you still have to hit the ball.
Yeah, steroids doesn't help with timing.
Yeah, there was a guy that took steroids back in the day, Marlon Byrd, right? And Marlon Byrd hit like 220. So he didn't really benefit from steroids too much.
No, I see the argument, and John is definitely up there when it comes to, like I said, fighters. Maybe it's just like a personal moral high horse, and maybe I shouldn't be that
Trey. Maybe you should do some roids too. Take a mile in his shoes.
Maybe I haven't related yet. I need to just juice up and see, and then I'll be like,
maybe your back will stop hurting.
I know. I woke up the other day. I will say this, is that I have back issues. And that's why I can't compete in combat sports as much as I wanted to. But literally, I was just laying down, and then I woke up the next morning in my back like I was like an old man walking around.
Let's see. As John. Yeah. Yeah, scumbag. I can see it.
Yeah.
But come on. If you listen to John, he's saying, I was just out in Albuquerque, treating the homeless people like people, It's like, as I was shooting a gun down the street and drunk off my ass in my SUV while everyone else is stuck inside during coronavirus.
Yeah. So with John Jones, because I live in Albuquerque and Great White, I don't know where you live, but I literally live in the same city as John Jones. I'm not going to take this too far, but from what I hear and from my understanding, the stuff that you've seen in the news is not even the half of it. So if you can imagine all those news stories that he's been involved with and how bad those are, just wait till you hear some more right behind the scenes.
It's kind of funny because I live in Houston.
Okay.
It's kind of funny when I think about this one because, you're right. Like, how is it that it's just like such a clean-cut brother, like Chandler Jones. Right?
Yeah, outstanding.
And then he's just so far off the beaten path.
Honestly, I think it could be Albuquerque. And I'm not even joking you. I think this is why Jackson's became what it is because here in Albuquerque, we have, whether it's like a cultural thing or what it is, we've got a bunch of gangs. We've got a lot of people that are uneducated, that are just committing a bunch of crime and violent, just doing hood rat stuff, right? And so, like, I think it was like we had to get good at fighting. That's the only professional sport that we have is fighting, basically, right? Like, you could say there's New Mexico United Soccer, a little bit, right? Like the Isotopes on MLB, the AAA. So really, the best thing we have is fighting, and I think it's because we had to. But with that, and living in Albuquerque, you're exposed to a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs, stuff like that.
All his thank you God BS. No, no. I mean, we just how can you buy anything that's coming down the guy's neck? The bottom line is he's like a child that got caught. You know what I mean? Something wrong, and he's just going to say whatever to get him out of the hole.
Yep, exactly. And Great White, I agree with Julian. I don't buy any of his BS because, like, we saw, if it were a one-time thing, we saw him first when he got a DWI. So he crashed his car. Yeah, he crashed his car in New York, and that was one time. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and when you're one of the best athletes in the world, like, you go out and you party and you make some mistakes. But then it's like he's hitting pregnant women, right, with his car and leaving the scene of the crime. He's doing cocaine in Vegas the night before a fight, and then he's again, you know, drunk in his car with a gun and shooting it off and stuff. And so I don't believe any of the BS that comes out of Jon Jones's mouth. And recently, he actually was here in town. I want to say he gave away $25,000 worth of food to families in need, which is respectable, and I 100% like appreciate anytime somebody does something like that. But I think it's all PR and trying to make Jon Jones look better, just because he's been in trouble so many times.
All right, so we got another fight on hand. Ngannou versus Rosenstruck's about to take place. So we both went with Ngannou. Slumpbuster in the Instagram chat or Instagram poll also went with Ngannou, about 78%. Mm-hmm. So pretty heavy favorite here, Francis. It's kind of shame his name is Francis.
Hey, you can be named whatever the heck you want if you're built like that, dude. And
do you think he had to go out of his way to go to the gym a little extra hard because his name was Francis?
Yeah, what is it? There's like a movie or a song about naming your kid Marion or being named Marion or something.
I'm sure there is.
So, no, I think so. I think, you know, being named Francis, he's probably like, all right, you want to make fun of me, I'm going to knock everybody out. And there's a really
What are you going to name your kids, Dre?
Oh, man, I need to name them something that they get picked on or something, exactly. So that way they toughens them up.
Let's see. That would be a good one.
Let's see. Francis and Marion are good ones. There's
Melvin. Have you ever met a Melvin that you didn't just want to punch in the face?
That is true. Melvin Manhoef, though, was a really good fighter back in the day. I think he's
still fighting. Again, point proven, right?
He had to toughen
up. You got to learn how to fight if your name is Melvin or Francis.
Yep. Yeah, look at that reach. So there's about a 5-inch reach advantage for Ngannou. And there was a stat that rolled across the left side of the screen saying that Ngannou has finished all 14 of his wins. And 10 of those have been knockouts in the first round. So Rosenstruck's undefeated. And he's a great fighter as well, but I mean,
plus 205 underdog here.
Yeah, I think Ngannou's got this one.
I don't know. Rosenstruck looks determined here, man.
He's on it, Rosenstruck.
He's got the bitch face going on, the death stare.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to a lot of interviews with a lot of these fighters, and
I'm watching these fights. I could kind of see that one because the no crowd interaction.
Yep.
Yeah. We agree, you know, like the limited entrance music, all that stuff. That's why I couldn't imagine watching a basketball game right now. I just couldn't see it.
It's weird,
the moment, you know.
And even like Joe Rogan, right? I think we can tell he's still used to doing what he's doing. So he interviews the fighters, and he's like, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know, Calvin Kattar, ladies and gentlemen, you know, Francis Ngannou." And then there's silence after, right? Like,
exactly. A little play, a little interaction. You don't have any Brock Lesnar jumping from the crowd to get into the middle. On it. None of that's going on right now.
Yeah, so it's a little bit weird. And like I said, even seeing like your ring card girls just chilling there by themselves with nobody else around, it is a weird vibe.
Just look at these guys right here.
Massive human beings. So I do appreciate that they always put the bigger refs with these guys.
Oh, right!
Oh my he just freaking went to work. And
Just, oh my God.
that is the power you have to watch out for when you're fighting this guy. And this is why we chose him. We said he's got the power, he's got the reach, he's got the height.
Just barrels in, undefeated, no border.
Oh my gosh, that was insane.
Did we just see a murder?
This is what I'm saying. Like,
oh my God, look at him. He is not moved.
I know. I do appreciate that Ngannou is right there checking on him to make sure he's okay. Ngannou, by all accounts I hear, he's a nice guy.
Hey, you good, bro? I know I just, basically committed manslaughter on you, but, I just want to check, see if you're okay.
Yeah. No, and you can see it in his face. Like, he's genuinely concerned because Rozenstruik, was out. He was out before he even fell to the ground.
Yeah, let's see this one because he hit it up against the cage after, he was starting to fall down.
Yeah. No, and we're literally going to get a replay of the entire fight right now. It starts off, they're finding their range. Rozenstruik throws an inside leg kick with the left.
Yeah, just filling him out, nothing big. And then he starts to backpedal and boom, done. Once he started backpedal, it's just like his jaw opened up, everything was open, and just Ngannou didn't mess around. He took it full advantage.
Right there.
Hit him with one. So there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. That left hook.
Yeah, left hook right to the chin as you're backpedaling too. So that's the thing is, we saw Greg Hardy have really good head movement.
Yeah.
But if you get hit while you're moving backwards, you're almost guaranteed to get knocked out.
Yeah. It's like balance. Your hands aren't up to defend it. There was nothing that Rozenstruik could do in that situation.
Nope.
He was put in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, DC. Oh shit.
Yeah. I think DC is looking at this like, I need to retire.
Yeah.
I need to fight Stipe one more time and get out.
Because DC hasn't facing on it, right? That's not
nope.
something.
I don't think he wants to.
I don't think he wants to. No.
I wouldn't want to face Ngannou.
Oh my God. Dude.
Yeah, so Great White, you are exactly right. We're seeing a lot of these African countries, especially Nigeria, that are starting to produce some monsters. And in my next MMA video, so in MMA 101 in the series, we're going to start to talk a little bit about that, some of these up-and-coming countries. And Nigeria has got some bangers for sure.
God bless. What builds a man like this?
Nigerians. That's what it is. The Nigerians just crank them out. Oh, my gosh.
So is this what Juicy Smollett was worried about?
Yeah, exactly.
Nigerians, man.
Gosh. No, this guy is insane. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw, he caught Rozenstruik a little bit.
Let's see what
we'll go to the
has.
commentary.
Yeah. I mean, when I heard he called me out, I knew that he didn't know what he's doing. I mean, he has a lot of potential, obviously, and I think he has to take a step back and get ready before fighting against someone like me.
Well, the power that you display, my friend, let's take a look at it real quick. You blitzed him. You just came forward and threw these full power bombs. You got him backing up against the cage, and boom, this is the one that got him. You clipped him with that left hook, everything
and
after
then he
that.
catches him. Yeah,
and then just pounding on him against the cage.
I
knew he could do what he was doing.
We've been working for 15 weeks.
Just that Nigerian accent too,
So we've been
Did
working
you know the way?
combo, how to dodge everything, how to set up, and then that's what I worked in.
Yeah.
I had exactly the setup, and obviously he didn't get caught on that setup, and I follow up. So he was a great teamwork.
Now, Francis, I follow you on social media, and you put all these hashtags, uncrowned champ. You're in this position where the UFC's heavyweight division is on hold. How frustrating is that for you, and where do you feel you fit in the division?
That's very frustrating. Where I
feel like want a piece of this guy?
I would be scared.
This fight to be my for the title. I mean, after DGS, I expect to fight for the title. But it didn't happen. Then we asked the UFC for the interim title fight on this fight.
How calm and soothing his voice is.
Oh, right? It is such a 180 from just ruthless aggression we just saw in that fight.
Fight on fight, how am I going
Pat Mahomes asked a very good question. So Pat Mahomes just tweeted, "Yo, who wants to fight this man?"
I'm sure
Good question.
I don't fight for the title next.
3 inside of 45 seconds.
Thank you very much.
3 and
Congratulations.
that didn't even last 15.
And thank you for all my friends around the world. Thank you for all the support. I received your message, guy. Without you, I wouldn't be here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Francis Ngannou,
Right, if I met this guy in the street, he's so chill, so calm.
Well, and that's the thing I appreciate about Ngannou is he's so
He
calm.
got a
so
bazooka.
relaxed.
Most people have a gun. Jeez, congrats, my brother, Usman.
I know. Yeah, Great White, going back to your point about DC freaking out, I guarantee DC is like, nope, I'm not fighting that dude. Win or lose to Stipe in the rematch. DC's calling it quits. I wouldn't want to fight this guy.
No, he'll end your career.
Literally, yeah.
Lights out. Just see when we were talking to him like way back when during our all-decade thing, we're talking about those 15-second fights for Ronda Rousey, put her on the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can put that on our Facebook like, rewind right there. Just that. Oh, seriously, I might just post it on our Instagram. Just that, because I'm sure the highlight's gonna be everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean. And what's crazy about Ngannou is I didn't even think his technique was that great.
Yeah.
And normally when it comes to striking technique, that's where you start to be able to generate those powers is by using the correct movements. He didn't even have to. He just was swinging. Like that hook was not the most technical hook, and it still put Rosenstruck to sleep.
See, you guys were waiting and our like last reaction to the NFL draft. They were like, "Oh, you guys didn't have enough emotion and everything like that." It's like, yeah, you want emotion? Fucking talk about like a knockout like that. That will get everyone on their seats right there.
Yeah, no, there's some emotion for you.
Exactly. I mean, God bless. In my mind, and I know it's not fight of the night overall as far as the actual fight, but that's like a fight of the night because of most impactful moment, I think.
That was a fun one. I think it definitely gets knockout of the night for sure. Unless we see something crazier in these next two fights.
Well, I mean, Qatar did fold back Stevens pretty good with that elbow.
That was an impressive one.
Out of the 3 fights we've seen, like I would not give like the edge to like Ardian,
No.
So and then the other 2 have been through finishes.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the 2 fights, I mean, based off actual fights, you would have to go Qatar and Stevens as the fight of the night right now.
Yeah. No, those have been great fights. I would say Qatar Stevens is probably fight of the night at the moment, and then knockout of the night, I would give it to Francis Ngannou, just because you beat an undefeated fighter with under a minute, under 30 seconds, and you literally put him to sleep. You caught him against the cage and kept beating him. Like it was, just straight battery. It was crazy.
Trey, you want to talk a little bit about MMA 101, the weight cutting research you did?
Yeah. So to get back into MMA 101 and some of the weight cutting research, I looked at basically each weight class in the UFC, and we mapped in normal distributions the height of each champion. And I know it doesn't always correlate perfectly with reach. Like there's some guys that are really short but have really long arms. There's some guys that are really tall that have really short arms. But on average, height and reach basically correlate. So that's why I didn't bother mapping reach or anything like that.
Fair enough.
And so the reason why we did that is theoretically the reason you cut weight is to gain an advantage. And most of the time these guys are looking to cut weight so that they have that height and reach advantage. What we found is that 2 weight classes, so bantamweight and featherweight, you have champions that are shorter than average. Lightweight, you have a champion that is exactly average. And then every weight class above that, you have a champion that is heavier than average. And my theory behind this is that, like we just saw, as you get bigger, your ability to generate a lot of power grows exponentially. You pair that with your reach, like we just saw, right, with Francis Ngannou. So now you're throwing really, really heavy hits, and you've got reach. And then your chin, it just doesn't get that much stronger, right? Like honestly, a 145-pounder could potentially knock out a heavyweight. And the reason is what it takes to knock you out. It's not necessarily strength that knocks you out. It's just the ability to accelerate your head rapidly. And so if you're in the wrong position and your head is either down or you're leaning back with your chin, like we just saw, you can't brace your head as well. You don't have the neck muscles, the shoulder muscles. and it accelerates your head really quickly. That's what causes knockouts. So your ability to withstand knockouts doesn't grow at the same rate that your strength does. And so that combination makes height and reach and strength much more valuable in the higher weight classes. So basically, in conclusion, right, is that the smaller weight classes, cutting weight is still going to happen, but it's less valuable. You don't necessarily need reach and as much strength to be successful. And we've seen this several times with Frankie Edgar, Henry Cejudo, who we're about to watch fight, has had success. Demetrius Johnson isn't necessarily the biggest guy. John Dotson. But then as you start to get bigger, if you're on the shorter end of your weight class, like we just saw with Rosenstruck, you'll be a good fighter. Like I'm not saying you're a bad fighter, but it just becomes a lot harder to compete with those big, tall guys. So you might want to think about possibly cutting weight. Rosenstruck, there's no way he can, right? He's just too big of a human being.
Oh yeah.
But some of those other guys that are on the bubble, that maybe you're on the short side of heavyweight, but you can move down to light heavyweight or something, it might be a good idea.
Okay, fair enough. I personally not a huge fan of the idea of weight cutting as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing these guys kind of like walk in like fatigued and out of it, it's just you don't necessarily see their best sometimes when they've cut such severe weight classes.
Yeah.
In such a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think you talked about it in relations to Ferguson in his last fight. He came on a little bit like slow or stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Also, can we just give it up for the Cejudo, Olympic gold, UFC double champ, all over most distinguished fighter of all time? Oh yeah, I could agree with that. To be an Olympic gold medalist is like a huge honor, and there's not too many around the UFC that can ever brag about that.
Yeah, and I want to say Kyle Snyder might have overtaken him, but for a while at least, and it might still be true, Henry Cejudo was actually the youngest Olympic gold medalist from America. So not only did he's the youngest Olympic gold medalist, but like you said, double champ. He beat who a lot of people had in arguments for greatest of all time as far as technique, and Demetrius Johnson, and he was able to avenge that loss. Cejudo just keeps getting better. And then he also competed in Golden Gloves, I believe, and was a Golden Glove champion in Arizona. So the man, you can argue that he is the best combat sports athlete there is on the planet. And I would say, that's a good argument.
Let's see. So, what's kind of interesting, so you mentioned like that we're getting younger and younger Olympic gold medalists in wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have heard a stat out there that youth wrestling has been on the biggest rise it ever has in U.S. history. So that has to be pretty exciting for you as a youth wrestling coach.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. And I think the reason for that has been several things. So one, there was a lot of talk about removing wrestling from the Olympics altogether. And I get why. Wrestling, in a lot of ways, is boring if you don't know what's going on, right? Like for me, I'm a big technique nerd. So I'm like, oh, did you see where his left hand was and how he passed that arm? Or, he went this way instead of going that way. That was sick. But to your average person, it's like, why are they grabbing each other? And like, what are they doing, right? And you even hear a lot of times with UFC fans, right? And people watching the UFC, they're like, hey, we don't want to see the takedown. We don't want to see him on the mat. Like, stand him back.
Well, that's why people hate Khabib.
Yeah, that's why people hate Khabib, right? And so that was part of the reason why wrestling was on the chopping block for the Olympics. What I think happened is that really motivated USA Wrestling, the organization that runs a lot of the really competitive national competitions for high schoolers, especially in freestyle, but some in folk style. And then they also are the ones that obviously sponsor the Olympics and the Olympic athletes, and everything goes through that organization. I think it really fired up USA Wrestling to like, hey, we need to make the sport better and we have to start growing it. So they've done a lot of things at the youth level to help grow the sport. And then I also think is women's fighters. So seeing women like Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, Miesha Tate, Amanda Nunes, it now gives young women role models that they can look at and be like, hey, I could be a professional athlete that's on a really big stage. And I would argue that UFC women's fighters are the most popular female athletes besides like your Serenas.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you right there. Because if you look at just the popularity of leagues like the WNBA, we had a great conversation obviously with Chantel about the WFLA. But like when you look at the amount of stardom that these women are able to grab, individual sports far and away outshine
Way
team sports, you know?
Yeah.
And because I guess it's less pressure on you because you can build up your own personal brand.
Yep.
You're not worried about the other 10 people on the roster. Like you could say, like a Candace Parker from the WNBA, like she's a superstar, but she's held back because of the entire brand of the WNBA.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why like they're like independent. You know, they're independent from everyone else except themselves. You know, they're in control of what they do, and I think that's why they've been able to rise. And as far as just taking this back into the overall sport of wrestling and like you mentioned, so when you think about direct routes to a sport and everything like that, to superstar and being an athlete and everything like that, definitely wrestling does seem like the best route for one of these girls to pursue. Being that it is sponsored by school districts and everything like that, as opposed to, you know, like other combat sports where you have to kind of go out your way for it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, so for boxing, you got to go find a boxing gym. And the nice thing about combat sports is most of the time, any city you're in outside of like really rural towns, you can find some type of martial arts gym, whether it's Taekwondo, boxing, you know, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you'll find something. But it still costs money. You know, on a monthly basis, you've got to pay your membership dues and all this thing and all those things. So as a young woman athlete, it's like, hey, if I do want to become maybe a professional MMA fighter, make it to the UFC, I got to do something to start training while I'm young. And might as well do wrestling. You know?
All right, so Cahuta versus Cruz about to take place. We're seeing Dominic Cruz walk into the ring right now. So we both went with Cahuta.
Yep. Yeah.
And actually, the Slumpbuster disagreed with us on this one, the Instagram poll. So y'all picked Dominic Cruz. And I can respect it. It's going to be a close fight. These are both very talented fighters. But I like, similar to what is going on in the chat right now, it's like Cahuta is just like a very accomplished fighter in his own right. Great grappling, just powerful striking. He's been voted as one of the top 100 strikers of all time in the UFC. So, you know, I think that kind of tells he can do a little bit of it all. You know, let's see. And I think, too, being that it is his first title defense here, a little extra motivation.
I think so. Cruz also coming off that layoff. Like I said, he just gets injured so frequently. His body doesn't – I think his body can't keep up with his style and his movement. So that's why I'm going with Henry in this one. Cejudo, like we said, he's got the technique. He's got the the diversity in his background, and he continually gets better. He hasn't even been doing MMA for all of that long, and he's just getting better and better. There's still room to grow. Whereas Cruz has been doing it since the WEC days, right? So he's sort of stuck in his habits now, and they're not necessarily bad habits. Like, he does a great job fighting. It's just harder and harder to continue to develop the longer you've been doing something, you know. We do have a question from Great White. So, better trash talker, Conor or Dominic Cruz? I think Dominic Cruz, in my opinion, is just too professional. Like, I love Cruz, and he trash talks, but man, you got to give it to Conor. Like, Conor gets into your mind when he talks to you.
Now, hold up. What if we throw Colby Covington into this argument?
Colby Covington is also good.
He's pretty damn good at trash talking. I would put him at least as a top 5.
Yeah, I would say Colby Covington is up there. Conor McGregor, in my opinion, is still going to be the best.
That's Conor's brand, is trash talking. Yep. You know, and he'll even take it into other sports where he's the severe underdog against Floyd Mayweather, and he's still talking trash. So that alone, the balls to talk trash to arguably the greatest boxer of all time, I think we'll give it to Conor on that one.
I agree. And the thing, I think, when it also comes to Conor, so it's not just the trash talk. I think it's his ability to back it up. And and Dominic Cruz obviously has been successful as well. I think he's only lost 2 fights. But Conor, who has more losses than Cruz, he still goes in and gets first-round knockouts, right? And has an exciting style. And I think that paired with his trash talk just really gets into people's heads. It's really intimidating, and it's fun to watch.
Ali or Conor, then. I mean, Ali set the groundwork for it, you know? And I guess what I'll say about Ali is he can keep it clean, you know? He can keep it clean, you know, sting like a butterfly, or sting like a bee, fly like whatever, you know? You know the same. Either way, you know, so Conor, you know, you get a little racy, you get that like drunk Irishman kind of thing going on, you know, there. And I think that's kind of like where his advantage. They're both unique in its own right, but you know, you don't have a Conor if you don't have an Ali. So I'm going to give it to Ali.
Yeah, I mean, I
It
think
depends what your brand is.
it depends what your brand is, and you're right. Like without Ali and without sort of that blueprint, we don't get a Conor McGregor. But I think Conor has taken it a step further. So that's where I'm going to disagree with you. I think for the time, Ali obviously was the best trash talker.
Well, here's the thing. What I can do with Ali is I can still throw on like a compilation of his best interviews,
Yeah,
and it still holds up.
it still does.
You know, like
it's timeless.
it's timeless. And
Yeah.
I feel like with that one, if you didn't know Conor McGregor, you just heard this guy just saying, "You're a fucking piece of shit." You know,
yeah.
I'm
Who
sorry.
the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, who the fuck are you? You know, it's like, you know, it's more like a blue collar kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that one's a really good one, Great White. I like your Ali pick, but I'm gonna stick with Conor. Just also because Conor has just become so transcendent. I think Ali at his time was well known and well respected as an athlete, but Conor like himself is one of the biggest sports brands in the world.
Well, let me say this.
At least a few years ago.
Well, let's say this because we're watching obviously The Last Dance like everyone is right now.
Uh-huh.
We'll get Jordan, man. Like we talked about this last couple episodes.
Yeah.
Who's taking the last shot between you, Bird, Magic? Me.
Yeah.
That's a dumb question. Me. You
Yeah.
know, it's like that's great. Who's on TV? God gave me money and all that. It's like, you know, God, you know, Michael was fucking awesome.
Yeah. Real quick, last Michael Jordan story when it comes to trash talk. Before we get into this fight, it's about to start. Bruce Buffer's announcing there is this story where he goes into the Atlanta Hawks locker room right before a game.
Yeah.
And he just walks in and he's like, all right, lace him up. It's going to be a long night.
He puts
before the game and drops 50 on him. Like, that is the most incredible thing. You go into your opponent's locker room and not even like, hey, guys, you know, get ready. It's just like lace him up. Whoever's defending you goes straight to him. Hey, lace him up. It's going to be a long effing night. You walk out and then drop 50 on him. That's got to be iconic. Trash.
Jordan, fucking savage. Fucking savage, man.
Savage. All right. So this fight is about to get going. We'll listen to Bruce Buffer announce it.
Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, a big martial artist holding professional record, 22 wins, 2 losses. He stands 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighing in at 135
That unorthodox movement from Dominic Cruz.
California, presenting the former.
Kind of dig it, like, you know, this is a vine, you know.
No, I think it's what makes him so effective, but also opens him up to some of those lower extremity injuries.
I see that.
And now introducing the champion, fighting out of the red corner, a wrestler holding a professional record, 15 wins, 2 losses. He stands 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighing in at 135 pounds. Fighting out of Phoenix, Arizona, presenting the 2008 Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling and the former UFC flyweight champion, presenting the reigning, defending, undisputed UFC welterweight champion of the world, Henry Triple C Cejudo.
He's ready for this one.
Nope.
Bring it. I feel like he's going to come out strong in this first round. I kind of like I'm sensing his energy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like he's going to want to push the pace.
I think he's going to want to, but the movement of Cruz is hard to get used to. And it's not easy to have a training partner that can simulate it because Cruz is just so unique. Garbrandt actually did a pretty good job of using movement against Cruz, and that threw Cruz off. So I think the first round is actually going to be maybe a little bit slower than you're thinking, Juju, just because you have to figure out, like, what is this guy doing, right? You see how much his feet are moving. They're moving literally every single second. He's not standing still.
They're going to tear themselves up around all this hopping around here.
Yeah. You see, he almost slipped, though. So I'm talking about Cruz. He threw a lower leg kick with his right foot, almost slipped. And that movement, while it keeps your opponent sort of on their toes and it's hard to engage, it does open you up for like these weird unorthodox injuries. Like I was saying, is that you slip or you get hit the wrong way because you're not moving in a normal motion. And that's when you get those like ACL tears and stuff like that.
All right, let's see here. Okay, so far, a lot of motion, not a lot of punches.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
good leg kick.
Nice. And that was so like quick too, like juke move kick.
Yeah, and this is where I'm saying like Cejudo's becoming an even better fighter because he hasn't done MMA for as long as like Cruz has. Cejudo's starting to develop more and more as a fighter, and that leg kick we saw was explosive. It was quick, and that was one of probably the best leg kicks we've seen all night. Besides, those kicks that Greg Hardy was taking to the knee.
Let's see.
They were more technical though.
Ooh, another decent little leg kick there.
Yeah. Ooh.
Inside to the inner thigh there.
Yep. And yeah, Joe Rogan just made a really good point about chopping down Dominic Cruz's legs. So the best way to slow Dominic Cruz down is if you get rid of his ability to use his movement and that unorthodox step.
Another inner leg kick.
Yep. The way you do that is you chop down his legs. Every step begins to hurt, and now he can't move as quick as he normally does.
Slip.
Oh.
But
good
there's the wrestling. There's the wrestling element there.
Yep.
Good. Just so quick to get back to his feet. He's like, oh shit, I slipped. I'm back up. No problem.
Because he's been there a million times, right? Like that was very similar to an ankle pick position. Yeah. That when you get your head thrown over your ankle, you sit to your butt, and right away you need to take your underneath hip, square it back to the mat, and then you can get back up.
Oh shit! Takedown. Yes.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Got the back.
Okay, keep him down.
Good scramble. Good scramble.
Okay, that's very impressive by Cruz to be able to get out of there from such a talented wrestler like Cejudo.
Yeah.
He had him down, just basic, on top position, ready to ride, and here we go again. Just got it with front face lock. Okay, nope.
I thought a knee was coming. No, I was impressed with the speed and ability of Cruz to hit that explosive of stand-up, especially when you've got Cejudo on your back. Normally in MMA, right, you don't want to do like a traditional wrestling stand-up, but Cruz did more of that like tripod, turn your back to him, give up your back, but get right up right away. So very impressive. I still think Cejudo's probably winning this round right now.
Far and away. He's got a takedown in here. He's got those significant leg kicks.
Mm-hmm.
Cruz hasn't landed a really good strike in quite yet.
Yeah, I had thought that maybe that knee slightly landed right before the takedown, but it looks like it did not phase Henry at all.
Trying to circle around right now. But you look at it, so he just keeps such a good job of keeping Cruz.
Good left over the top.
Yeah, he's not getting distracted by the side-to-side motion too much. He just still has him lined up, and then he's, striking with those significant blows, those straight punches there.
Yep.
Trying to kick, misses, okay.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Cruz is struggling with right now, and we've seen, and when Cejudo first started in the UFC and MMA in general, is he was a little bit slower because he wasn't as comfortable. Now we're seeing a really quick, really explosive Cejudo.
Another kick.
It's scary how quick he is.
And you're hearing those pops off those leg kicks too. Like he's landing with each one of those.
Yep. Yeah. Every strike has power and speed, but it's not he's overthrowing like we saw with some of these other fights. Like he's still conserving energy.
That was dangerous right there. Like Cruz almost gave up his leg, with again, like you could have just ankle picked and then rolled.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so far this is a great fight. About 20 seconds left. Jordan versus Kobe work ethic. Okay, so Great White. When we get to the break after this round, we will answer that question. It's a great question. Keep them coming, though, Great White. We appreciate it.
10 seconds. 10 seconds. They're just going to wait it out. Nothing special here. You're not going to see anything. Oh, no, going for it. Okay. It's not. I think I just tore my ACL. God. Missed that one. What Forrest Griffin have saying? Speed at which Olympic wrestlers get up. Yes. Unfathomable. Yeah, we said it right there. Just like so quick to speed. So quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, So to answer your question, Jordan versus Kobe, work ethic. Who had the harder work ethic, do you think?
I guess you would have to probably say Kobe just from the standpoint of let's face it, Michael Jordan did have his Vegas trips, his golf trips, like he could get away with it because he was more talented than Kobe.
Yeah. Well, was he though? Because
he was.
But Jordan remember, Jordan, his sophomore year was not even on varsity.
Yeah.
Of high school.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, like what you did at the NBA level, I'm judging you by what you did in your NBA career.
In your prime.
Yeah.
Not when you were in youth.
Exactly, because it'd be like, if I had to judge Greg Hardy, for example, like by what he did when he first had this first fight, versus now that he's starting to come into it as a real fighter.
That's true. I think you're right. I think Kobe probably had slightly higher work ethic, though I think Jordan brought an intensity that even Kobe didn't, right? Like the fact that Jordan was willing to punch you in the face because you sucked at practice, and he would not accept you sucking at practice. So, all right, we're back into the next round. So round 2 out of a 5-round fight, since this is for a belt, all championship fights are 5-rounders. I think Cejudo won that first one pretty convincingly.
Hands down, easy. Want to chalk up to Cejudo.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
he's still coming with those kicks.
Oh, and that balance, man. Like, that's what I'm saying. Cejudo's been in those positions where he's had his leg off the mat. He feels that he's getting taken down and just knows how to get out of it.
The hip movements of wrestlers is just always something that blows my mind sometimes, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestlers that can use their hips are the most dangerous because they can just squirm, scramble, and just get out of any bad position you put them in.
Yep. I remember. So, do you remember this one time Coach Sparago had us do the twist at practice? Only time I've ever been kicked out of practice because I was like, that's the stupidest thing.
Actually, I do remember that. That's right.
I get kicked out of practice because our wrestling coach was like, you need to do the twist to loosen up your hips and make your hips, better so you can move them. And I was like, this is the stupidest crap. I am not doing this. Kick me out of practice. Now, looking back, I wish I would have been doing that since freshman year.
Who was we also had other people who got kicked out of practice before. Who else?
We had quite a few. Andrew Davis was one of them. I'm sure. Ruben.
Because my leg stopped. I forgot I used my leg or something stupid like that.
Something dumb like that. We had a whole lot of dumb people get kicked out.
Listen, just like some of the stories you'll see in a wrestling room.
Good head kick.
I don't know if any of our current listeners right now have ever been in a wrestling room. It's hell. You're in a 130-degree room. You have to occasionally crack a joke when you can.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, oh my God, it's a rough one. It's a rough going.
No, it gets hot in those wrestling rooms, and it sucks. And you're just grinding and
you
grinding.
Just do it on purpose too. I know coaches can turn on the AC.
Yep,
they don't.
And they don't give you water breaks.
Just close it, make a sweat box out of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Seriously, I don't think sometimes you wouldn't have a water break until an hour into practice.
Yeah, when you've already lost 5 pounds.
Because if you think about the way our workouts was formulated, we would do warm-ups, then we would do some sprints and cardio.
Yep.
And then we'd do some live wrestling, and then you could get your water break.
Yep, exactly.
I think it builds toughness, though, that you don't see in other sports,
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of these wrestlers are so successful, right? Like we're seeing Cejudo's able to push the pace right now, but you had Daniel Cormier.
Endurance,
Yeah, Khabib, even though their type of wrestling they're doing in Russia, I don't think he ever competed in freestyle, but he did a lot of sambo, very similar.
Well, the thing you learn about wrestling, if you haven't wrestled in a while and you have kind of like a match, you're like, God, why does this hurt? Why does that hurt? Like it's a whole body soreness.
Oh, yeah.
Like last time I did like a little wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
My jaw. I don't know how that's even possible. Why that would be the first thing to hurt?
Everything gets sore.
Yeah, I think it's just from the neck up. I'm just feeling it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this round, I think I'm still giving it to Cejudo so far. I've seen him push the pace, though. Dominic Cruz has had a few really good hits. I saw a few really good right hooks to the jaw from Cruz, though they were slightly blocked or hit the shoulder. But he's still having some good counters. But Cejudo's just pushing that pace.
Oh, Cejudo's definitely in control right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime there has been a scramble, it's gone his.
Ooh,
close.
Yeah, there was a good left leg kick from Dominic Cruz to the inside of Cejudo's left leg. But other than that, it's been again mostly Cejudo pushing that pace.
I kind of feel like Cejudo's trying to wait for him to do another one of those kicks though, because he tried to take him down with that one.
Oh. Yeah, So this was an interesting exchange. Is Cruz went for the takedown, Cejudo stuffed it, and then Cruz came back over with a left hook out of it.
Trying to drive him in the corner. But, Cejudo is being careful. He's being respectful of Cruz's ability to throw a hook here.
Yep. Looks like it was an eye poke.
No. Cejudo got cut. Please don't be above the eye.
I know. Okay, so it looks like blood going into the eye. That's why it was stopped.
Okay, but the cut itself looks like it's at the top of the forehead. So I think they'll clean that up, and we don't have to worry about a stoppage here.
It was a headbutt. So not an intentional headbutt. They just collided heads.
Yeah. Luckily, again, top of the head, they could clean that up real quick, and we're not going to have to worry about this one getting stopped early.
Yep, exactly. And if you're going to take a headbutt, you'd rather take it to the front and top of the head than anywhere else, like let's say the back of the head or something, because that would have knocked you out. It looks like it's not directly above the eye, so the doctor is going to allow it to continue.
And you got to imagine they're being extra careful on this kind of stuff, too.
Yep, exactly. If I'm Cruz, though, I try to use my left and target to open up that gash and maybe get blood in the eye to help.
Oh! Down. Okay.
Oh, short time, though. Short time. Oh!
What a way to end it.
Dang. There's probably like 1 second left in that round. How do you feel about that stoppage? Do you think that was a good stoppage?
Well, okay, so as time's expiring here, right?
Yeah.
I feel like regardless if there was more time, if there was more time on the clock, it would have went Cejudo's way.
Yeah.
So I feel as though it's a clean knockout. It's fine.
I disagree. If I'm the ref in that position, so I understand your job should not be dependent on how much time is left. But you hear the sticks. That's how you know there's 10 seconds left. And Cruz was still moving. His hands, you could see him changing position. And he does that because we saw even in his first takedown escape, he does this more of a tripod.
So it was a knee.
Yep, knee. That was a good right that followed.
But he was vulnerable. He wasn't.
See, he's still moving though. So
But he was just getting bullied, and
I don't know. He steps up with that left leg. So
I don't know. The way it was going, there was more time on the clock. I feel as though Cejudo would just kept pounding away on him, and they would have stopped it if there was another second.
Yeah, I think. He is hurt. You see him start to step up with that left foot, though. That inside
but
foot.
But it might have been his detriment. I mean, come on. Look at that knee he took.
And that right that followed it up, that hook to the head.
Yeah.
He's
even
moving,
even if we could get another round out of this, I'm pretty sure it would have went
Cejudo's way.
I don't think Cruz would have been able to battle back from that knee and that requisite hook.
I agree, especially because it was so close to the end of the round, right? Like, had it been a lot, like even a minute earlier, and then they still make it out of the round, he can recover in that amount of time.
Yeah.
But you only got 30 seconds to shake off those cobwebs and get back out there.
And then he fell back into the cage. There was just not, it's like a triple L. I mean, you are the ref in that position. Obviously, you are concerned about the fighter's safety, everything like that. So you don't want to put them in a position where they're already dazed and knocked out. And
and the ref did their job. Okay, we're gonna listen to the official decision. See, Jason Floyd even asking, was that an early stoppage?
Adesanya said early stoppage too. Might have been a quick stoppage, but I don't think there would have been any point in letting it go on.
Henry, congratulations on an outstanding.
See what Joe says.
You caught him. Well, first of all, let's get to the strategy of the fight. It seemed like right away you were chopping at those legs. Was that a big part of what you were planning coming into this fight?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm a chameleon. I can adjust, man. You can try to study me and train for me, but at the end of the day, I'm an athlete, and I can do. I have a great coach, Eddie Chalver. He put the game plan together. Obviously, captain. Captain Eric Alvarez was all on my side. I was getting attention, Joe, you know. And just
Hey, you're not supposed to be hugging like that.
Leon
No.
Ego,
Social
no
distancing.
chance, and man, it was just, you know, we stuck to the game plan, and that's all she wrote.
Let's take a look at the knockout. You caught him with a big knee, and then let's take a look at, here it is right here. You caught him at this knee, boom, right in the button, had him badly hurt. You see the legs go, he goes down, you hit him with a bunch of shots. It looked like he was trying to get
Fucking
back
freeze
up.
frame on that knockout, too.
I know.
You hit him with about
Like,
11 unanswered shots.
You see his face.
That was awesome.
I'm ruthless, Joe. I'm ruthless, man. I may be
I don't
cringy, corny, but boy, can I fight.
You're one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all
I
time.
am the greatest combat sports athlete.
I agree.
Nobody has my resume. I just defended my flyweight
He
title.
won me over with that
title.
performance.
I'm a champ. Did I mention that?
I agree.
He
Like,
even brings the gold medal down there. I mean, in his defense, I would bring that thing everywhere I would.
Uncle Dana, UFC,
Oh, I thought it was them.
everybody, thank you so much, Hunter Campbell, all the UFC staff. Joe, I'm happy with my career. I've done enough in the sport.
You
I
want to
want to
start?
walk away. I want to enjoy myself. I'm 33 years old. I have a girl now. Amanda was watching back home. I eventually want to start a family. Since I was 11 years old, I sacrificed my whole life to get where I'm at today. I'm not going to let nobody take that from me. So I'm retiring tonight, Joe.
Wow.
I'm 33 years old. I'm happy with my career.
33
Again,
years
Uncle Dana,
old.
I want to say thank you for everything. You're the man. Everybody here.
I'm sure Cruz wants that rematch. I'm sure he's
Everybody, thank you
pissed.
so much.
Look at Dana.
man.
Look at his face right now.
He is
He's
pissed.
like,
Dana is pissed. Wow.
okay, here's what I'll say with this.
I'm here with Dominic Cruz.
Fighters' careers, fighters' retirements. Yeah. Yeah, we believe you.
Yeah. And I think you got to do it on your own time.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
You think they'll be back?
They'll be back.
I don't know.
Dana's going to say, like, hey, you got this money.
Yeah. We'll see. Let's listen to Dominic Cruz and we'll talk more about this.
If I stayed on the floor, I get it, but I'm working my way up.
See,
That's
I agree.
what we saw. There was a lot of unanswered shots. You got hit with about 11 unanswered shots. Do you feel that that's just he was swarming you, but you were still cognizant, you were still aware of what was going on?
I was definitely still aware of what's going on now. I get that there were unanswered shots. That's part of the fight, you know. If I'm standing up to my feet, I'm in the fight. If I'm staying on the floor and continually to be chopped down, then I get it. But, you know, hats off to Henry. I got no excuses. I shouldn't have got caught with that knee on the way I got caught, and that's what put me in that position. But at the same time, I specifically asked the ref to make sure he let me take the shots I needed to. And if I'm standing up on my way up, how do I have my balance while I'm getting up? So
Blaming
give
the
me a
ref.
fighting chance in that. This is for a world title. This isn't.
This might be the hardest
I
sport to be
understand.
a ref in.
Now, after that, hearing that
Yeah,
Henderson
you have so
Cejudo
many
was gonna
different
retire,
styles,
and
so many strong
knowing you were just in a
personalities in the
title fight,
UFC.
What are your thoughts about the future? Are you going to
But
go home and think this through, or would you like to get right back?
I don't like
Sure.
that, you know, like
I could have.
I also don't like Cejudo retiring, but you know.
I
I
know.
wanted to finish this fight. I haven't ever been knocked out before. I don't feel that I was knocked out tonight. I feel like I was still in this fight. If the ref stopped it, the ref stopped it. I specifically made sure and told him that I didn't agree with the stoppage, which a lot of fighters do. But my argument is, if I'm standing up to my feet, how am I knocked out? You can't be standing up and be knocked out at the same time.
I understand your point. Always an honor to call your fight, sir. Thank you very much. Dominic Cruz, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, let's see
All
what
right, so
Chad's got
disappointed
going on
Dominic
here.
Cruz.
Poor sportsmanship on Cruz's end. He wasn't coming back from a knee and a straight right with countless unanswered shots. Cejudo owned period. I agree. You know, like
Yeah.
that. At least I know you kind of have like your disagreement on the stoppage as a whole, but I just feel as though like, come on, like.
Yeah.
I don't think you're getting back up from that. And even if you did, like, even if there was more time at the clock, Cejudo was just hammering off on it, man.
Yeah. No, I definitely see your point, and I get where Great White is coming from. But from what I saw and knowing Cruz's style and the way he got up in the first escape. So normally in MMA, the way you escape or get out of trouble is you're facing your opponent. You're normally on your butt. And then you put one hand down, lift your hip, and throw your hip underneath. So that way you're always facing your opponent. Cruz's style, he does more of a tripod where he turns his back to his opponent. He's pushing to get up. And you can even see his inside, his left leg start to step up. as he's coming, that's how I knew that he was moving. And the fact that he was changing angles the whole time. So he was getting hit, but he was moving around so that he could avoid some of those punches. His hands were moving towards the cage so he could create that separation and step up with his left. That's why I thought it was a little early. And me, if I were a ref, and good thing I'm not, I'd probably say, hey, I heard those sticks. I know that it's close, right? Or I should at least be aware of the time. It's been about 4 minutes, 45 seconds, 4 minutes, 50 seconds. I think I would have let it continue.
Well, here's two I'll say too. Goodall is winning the fight regardless.
No matter what. I think it probably would have ended the next round anyways.
Yeah, because Henry was dominating the entire time, and he won both rounds easily, even not counting the last 10 seconds of the second round.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's disappointing to lose a great fighter like that, especially after his first title defense there.
Yeah.
So now we have a vacant title. So we'll see what happens with that division moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, it really is interesting. And why I'm even more disappointed and more sad about this retirement is so he said he's 33 years old. So I think there's still a little bit of life there. He could probably fight until he's about 35.
Yeah.
Once you get to 35, it gets a lot harder, without a doubt. But we still saw he was getting so much better. Even in this fight, technically, this was one of his best fights and most complete fights. Everything from takedown defense to getting takedowns to punches and kicks, leg kicks, head kicks.
Yeah.
The speed at which he was able to do it. And even that last combination he put together of, I'm going to throw that knee. I see him going down. And the timing and accuracy to be able to follow up with a right hook as that person is down on the ground, sort of turned away from you, is incredibly high level. And so it's very disappointing to see Cejudo retire. But that being said, at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you and your family. And like I said, hey, I want to start a family. I've got a beautiful woman back home. So, do you.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to take a second in between to once again thank our partners at manscaped.com. Promo code SLUMP to get 20% off plus free shipping and handling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Manscaped, they have tons of great products. Obviously, we have the Lawnmower 3.0. We have the Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant, which, great. Don't smell like balls, top ball. And, bust the slump. You're not going to bust the slump smelling like shit. I'm just going to be frank with you, fellas.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be real about that. And then, I'm speaking from this room experience. I don't know if I can quite show you the product, but the anti-chafing boxer briefs, gotta say, I think, it's probably the most with care the package has ever been handled properly.
They are fantastic boxer briefs. The material they're made out of is extremely high quality. They fit just perfect. And like you said, they sort of just
kind of cup it, keep everything in place, not everything's shifting around too much, so shout out boxer briefs, go get them. I'm ordering some of their cologne right now too, based off how their other products smell. I'm assuming this is going to smell awesome as well once I get it in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
So come on guys, go use promo code SLUMP, 20% off plus free shipping and handling. That's promo code SLUMP, as in bust the slump, get 20% off plus free shipping and handling at manscaped.com.
Yep. And Manscaped is also the new sponsor of the UFC. So they really are a huge global brand. They're blowing up. They make great products. I just recently got their cologne as well. So as soon as that gets here in the mail, I'll let you guys know how it is. But I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, just like the rest of their products.
Oh, yeah. Sarah is going to love it.
Yep.
Sarah
absolutely.
is going to love it. So,
and for all you single men out there, as soon as we get out of quarantine, spray a little bit of that stuff on. Have the anti-chafing ball deodorant. You're gonna be set.
Exactly. If she swipes right, make her night. Just for the hell of it, Jordan versus Kobe. Oh, we covered it though. We basically said, I think work ethic wise, technically Kobe had the bigger work ethic because Jordan, he did take his trips off, his trip to Vegas that he talked about before the finals. He liked his occasional cigar, his golf trip. Nothing against him, but clearly it just shows he was that talented that he could get away with that shit. Kobe, no days off,
Yep.
Just the ultimate competitor. I mean, they're two different mentalities, so I think they come from the same vein, that killer instinct was involved in both of them, but they both had different ways of going about it. So Kobe, better work ethic, but Michael, the better talent, of course.
Yeah. And we discussed this a little bit, but Kobe was the type of guy, and I'm sure Jordan did this too. Kobe was in the gym, I hear, at like 5 o'clock in the morning every single day. And then after practice as well, he would put up 100 free throws, or he would make sure he sunk 100 free throws, or some crazy stat like that, right? Is he wouldn't leave the gym until he sunk 100 free throws every day after practice.
And I think what something too that's very telling is the fact that how committed he was to making his daughter's basketball team work, Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the fact that he was willing to fly her and her friends on a helicopter to get them to practice, right? Like, unfortunately, that's how he passed away. But so, I agree. Kobe with work ethic. But a point I made to Julian is I think Jordan's intensity when it came to practice, though, and desire for excellence might have been greater than Kobe's. And what I mean by that is, like, Jordan was willing to literally walk over and punch you in the face if he felt you weren't doing well enough.
Or as Grant mentioned as much.
Exactly. And that was the thing. Or Jordan would just straight up tell you, like, you suck. Like, get off the court. Don't come to practice. You suck because you're not making us better. So I think Kobe, work ethic-wise, Kobe. Intensity, though, I would say Jordan.
I agree with that. All right. It looks like it is main event time.
Yep. So before this, I'm going to run to the restroom. Julian, keep them entertained.
All right. So, just me and myself and Slumpbuster Nation out there. So, as far as picks go, Dre went with Ferguson. The Insta poll went with Ferguson. Just because I believe Khabib and Ferguson is forever cursed, based on everything we know about it. Watch, Gaethje's going to win this fight. So I just went with the underdog pick because at this point, why not? Because literally, so every time we think that Ferguson and Khabib is going to take place, just madness, insanity happens. It took a global pandemic to ruin that fight. And the best laid plans of mice and men are always ruined when it comes to UFC fights. So, I don't know. Maybe I stopped believing, guys. My heart has been broken too many times with that fight. I mean, we're already on attempt number 6 with it. So, yeah. I'm just going to – it's basically like my test in like college. I just expect the worst, hope for the best. That's basically what I'm expecting with like this fight. Now, what I think about when it comes to both these guys that I think is really cool and it's going to be an interesting part of the fight is they both bring the energy. They will back each other down. And I do think that's going to be a big determiner in who wins this one. It's going to be who gets the opponent backing up on their heels first. The big thing I think for Gaethje is you don't want this fight to go too long because Ferguson's motor, his energy, his stamina is what has kept him at the top of his game for so long. And then when it comes to Gaethje, when it comes to actually both of them, I should say, this could be a quick fight. Since they're both aggressive, since they're all up in each other's faces, you're going to see some significant strikes early.
Yeah. So I agree exactly with what you're saying is that this could be a really quick fight because they're so aggressive. They get right after it. Here's my reasoning for why I ended up going with Ferguson. So I heard you talking a little bit about, you pick the underdog, you pick Gaethje, who he in himself is a very, capable opponent. So he's World Series of Fighting champion before he moved over. A lot of people thought he was the best fighter outside of the UFC at that time. Then he moved over. He's had some really good wins in the UFC. He pushes that pace. He constantly moves forward. What I find really interesting is Gaethje is an all-American wrestler, but he likes to just stand and bang. And that's where I think this is going to get him in trouble, is he doesn't have the best head movement. Even though he punches really, really hard and throws a lot of volume, I think the elusivity of Tony Ferguson and the creativity of him is going to help. And then Tony just has a bunch of diverse attacks. So he has, weird rolling ankle locks that he does. He has takedowns. He transitions a lot of his strikes straight into an elbow. So he'll throw like a straight and then follow with an elbow and then possibly reverse elbow. He does things that are just so unorthodox.
He's a very creative fighter.
Extremely creative. I think that's why I give him the advantage in this fight.
All right. Well, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I feel like we're so snake bitten with, when it comes to
the Khabib and Ferguson fight. It could never happen. Yeah.
That it's just like, I don't know. Justin, Homer Simpson, Gaethje. Okay.
Looks a little like him.
You can see it. I mean, he's not as big in the gut, though. So
definitely in better shape than Homer Simpson.
There was that one episode of The Simpsons where Homer got super fit.
He got ripped. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. I haven't watched The Simpsons in years.
It's still going, though. They do a bunch of them still. I would like to, maybe now that it's quarantine, I'll just watch all The Simpsons from the very first episode of the 90s all the way.
All The Simpsons.
I'd be here for a year, but since we're not leaving.
I feel like if someone would need to break down your door and just find you on your couch with your eyes just wide open, bleeding, like Clockwork Orange too, with the little eye opener machines.
Yep. Now, what I will say and why I think Gaethje has a better shot than what I'm basically saying is, one, he has a lot of power. But two, Tony Ferguson, this is his second time within a month of cutting a lot of weight. So even though their first fight got called off between Gaethje and Ferguson, that was supposed to happen back in April, he still went through with the weight cut. And Ferguson's reasoning was it'd be disrespectful to everybody in my camp if I didn't go through the full camp. And it would get him out of the mindset of training to be a champion if he just okay, I'm going to stop because the fight's off. So he cut 24 pounds in 1 week. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, but it might have been, I think April 24th was when they originally scheduled the fight or something like that. So about 2 weeks ago, he cut 24 pounds and then he had to do it again this week.
Yeah.
And that much wear and tear on your body is really tough. Normally these guys in between weight cuts, they'll have usually about 3 months in between to recover.
You know what is a big plus to Ferguson, and what was my initial concern going into this, was that Ferguson had been preparing all this time for Khabib, right? He's been spending all this time just focusing on purely Khabib. If you listen to Eddie Bravo talk, right, he's talking about how he's just preparing takedown combinations, takedown defense. But obviously when the fight switched, it was just a week notice when it was originally going to take place on that April 19th date. But here we are, and obviously he has had a whole month now to prepare for Gaethje, so the card is flipped in that sense for him.
Yeah, they could prepare a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that is actually something else I'm going to look into the MMA 101 series, is how big of a factor is it when you're preparing for one type of fighter and then that last minute switch happens, right? So do we really see that trend of hey, this new guy that comes in, do they have a lot of success? How much success do they have versus the fighter that's been preparing? So that is another thing. So please do stay tuned.
Yeah, we have seen some knockouts before from last minute switches.
Absolutely. I mean, even Nate Diaz, right? He replaced Aldo, I believe, for the Conor McGregor fight, their first one.
Yeah.
And we saw how that ended. Is Diaz won, and that's what made Diaz a star, basically.
That's an interesting thing. So I forgot to mention, too, in that last fight versus Cejudo, it was originally supposed to be Aldo that was in that fight.
Yeah, and then it got replaced with Dominic Cruz. Though I think it wasn't necessarily a last-minute switch. They had prepared it for a little bit. Not as last-minute as some of the fights that we've seen, right?
Well, some of these, yes, that had to be thrown together on the fly. Basically, you're also expecting the agreement that these fighters were willing to come in and do it. You know what I mean?
Yep. All right. So we got Bruce Buffer announcing.
Out of the blue corner, a mixed martial artist holding professional record, 21 wins, 2 losses. He stands 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighing in at 155 pounds. Fighting out of Denver, Colorado, by way of Southford, Arizona, presenting the number 4 ranked lightweight contender in the world, Justin the Highlight Gaethje.
She is good, man. I will say that.
And now introducing the fighter fighting out of the red corner, a freestyle fighter holding professional record, 26 wins, 3 losses. He stands 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighing in at 155 pounds.
Something we didn't factor in was the elevation that they're training at, which we'll talk about maybe here.
UFC.
That's another MMA 101.
Yeah.
And the number 1 ranked lightweight contender in the world, Tony
paid so much money just to yell into a
Hey, gentlemen,
microphone.
sit up.
His learning must just be so tortured.
We've been over the rules. Protect yourselves at all times. Follow my instructions. We're going to keep it clean. Let's do it.
All right. Herb Dean, main event.
Gives
Think we ever
way
got
to the
Ferguson
action
versus
here.
McGregor?
Stands to reason that this could be
I wish.
absolute
I think
bananas tonight. Ricky
it's a
Powers
bad
versus
matchup for
Justin
McGregor.
Gaethje's dad, Ray, who shot
And
his first
I think the UFC would not want that.
But the personality's there, you know?
It could be really good. It would be really entertaining. All right, so we're just starting Ferguson and Gaethje, 10 seconds in. Not a whole lot of action just yet, but that's to be expected. It's only 10 seconds. Something Juju and we were talking about during this announcement is, will elevation have a factor? And it'd be interesting to see. Gaethje trains up at Denver, Colorado. As we know, that's one of the highest cities elevation-wise in the United States, at least. Whereas Tony Ferguson trains in Orange County, California. So that's down right at sea level, which is also where they happen to be. And so with Gaethje doing a camp at higher elevation, he gets those benefits because he's been there longer. His lungs have adjusted. And then he goes for a short time down to sea level. Whereas Ferguson is basically just in the same shape as he is in California.
Oh, what could benefit you the best in a fight against Tony Ferguson? Upping your stamina.
Yeah.
You know, upping your endurance, because you know that Ferguson will not tire out.
No, he doesn't. He does not tire out. Oh, very slick, very smooth. So we saw a few good combinations. Ooh, good left from Gaethje, though.
Just that smooth turn, that little spin move thrown in there.
Yeah.
Calm, cool, collective Tony Ferguson.
Ferguson, to me, he has my favorite fighting style. So not necessarily a fighting style I would emulate, but I just love watching how smooth and how fluid he is. And he just does so many things that transition so well together.
Okay, well, I did say a big part of this was going to be who could back down who first.
Ooh, good inside
Got him
leg
tripped
kick.
up on that one. That was good, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That also diluted the power of that right hand that Gaethje was throwing, because had that not happened, that could have been a really powerful hit to Ferguson.
Been keeping the middle so far. Oh.
And I am really worried about that left hook from Gaethje, Juju. I think that's what will, if you win that pick, I think it's that left hand, that left hook that Gaethje's been able to land twice already, 3 times even.
Oh, like I said, it seems like Ferguson wants to take away his power.
Ferguson moved his head out of the way and was able to avoid that, but
he's avoiding disaster by a second or two here.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that left hook is freaking nasty.
If you're Dana White, what could piss you off the most in this night? You was Ferguson and Caputo retires on you.
I know. Imagine. And honestly, Ferguson's getting up there in age too. I think he's in his 30s now. I think that was more of a trip though than anything.
Back up to his feet quick.
Yep. This has been a pretty quick round. It's been action-packed, but it's only 2 minutes remaining, so 3 minutes have already gone through.
Yeah, no one's really taken a huge advantage at this point.
Yeah, I think if I had to estimate, I would say that Ferguson has probably landed more, but Gaethje's has a lot of pop to it. All right, good jab right there. Missed.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Threw that elbow while he's walking into it.
Yeah. I do wonder if
you just look at, Ferguson's constantly moving his head side to side too.
Yeah.
It's hard to get it locked on too.
He's got some of the better head movement in the sport of MMA. Oh, good right head kick. It was mostly blocked by Gaethje, but still, had that landed, that could have been devastating. Ooh, good overhand right
with that one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Overhand right by Gaethje, so it's a good combo. Man, that left hook is freaking disgusting.
Landed it a couple times, yeah.
He has. Ferguson has a chin on him though. He's been hit by several good fighters, but
so far a 15-1 mark on his MMA career. So it takes a lot to take this man down. It's the longest win streak, I believe, in UFC currently.
Oh, good exchange. Ooh. Oh man, I'm telling you, that left hook, Juju, that might be what wins it for you.
Getting a little action towards the end of the round here.
Yep.
Got him swinging wild with that leg. Was that that's a welt developing on that forehead there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Gaethje hits hard. He's one of the hardest hitting in this division. We just saw in that last exchange, and my worry, I think, for most of that round, Ferguson had been the busier of the fighters. I actually think Gaethje might have stole that round there at the end.
We did see in the last pay-per-view for the UFC, Weili, she saw that she had Joanna with, the big old hemorrhage on the head, and she kept taking advantage of it and popping it straight.
Yep.
Let's see for the next round, Gaethje can do the same,
Mm-hmm.
expand that a few sizes.
So Great White says Ferguson got props from David Goggins, so you already know he will win. Yeah, David Goggins is a really intense human being. If you haven't seen any of his stuff, this dude does like literally 100-mile runs.
Guess there was an eye poke in there.
Yeah, and I think that's what Ferguson was a little bit upset about.
All right, let's see. So second round about to get going here. Like I said, it looks like he's got like a bee sting on his forehead right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's coming out striking here.
Yeah. Ferguson does a really interesting, almost like Superman punch type of strike. So he throws his foot back as he leans forward into that cross.
And it's effective too because he doesn't like give it away. Whereas Superman punch, obviously you could very easily telegraph that move.
Yeah, exactly.
Ferguson could throw that from almost any angle.
Yep, and it's so smooth. And then as his leg comes back, that helps him get his body back into position to move or to create a combination off of it. Good little jabs from Ferguson. Though Gaethje's landed some power.
Yeah, Tony's definitely on him more this round.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, these boys are hitting hard. John Bones Jones on the pay-per-view after all.
Yep. Good thing, John Jones. He's staying at home, staying out of trouble. Ooh. Telling you, that left hook is scaring me, Juju.
Well, Tony needs to start respecting it,
Yeah.
Because he's not loving it right now. He's every time he gets hit by it, he's stepping backward. He's like, "What the hell just hit me?"
It's definitely one of the harder hits in this.
And then a right hook right there.
Yeah, that right hook was beautiful.
Came across the chin right there.
I know. I'm worried about my pick now.
Low leg kick. Okay, keep him honest. But it does look like Gaethje does have a little bit of mouth bleeding going on right now too.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. He's got his mouth sort of open, so I can't tell if it's just from maybe there's a cut in there or if he's just tired and gassed. Like I know he's been throwing some really hard lefts and rights. We just saw that left again, and he's hitting hard.
Yeah, anytime they get in close on each other, Gaethje's gained the advantage, I feel.
Yeah, I think that close range. There it is.
Duck, pop, boom. Out.
And what I think it really is Gaethje. So Gaethje doesn't have the reach advantage. Ferguson has a really big reach advantage by almost like 4 inches, I want to say, which helps when you're fighting at a really far distance when you're just using those straights and jabs. But now that they're getting in so close, those hooks come quicker when your arms are shorter, right? When you don't have that reach.
Again, just
I'm telling you, it worries me. It worries me.
All right. Well, Tony's not. I would say right now, Gaethje's winning this fight.
Yeah, that was a good body shot too. Good hook to the body.
And I think Tony's getting more frustrated right now. I kind of see it on his face.
I think. Oof.
Every time he steps in on it, he's getting popped.
Yeah, this is definitely uncharted territory for Ferguson. I don't think he's ever been here to where he's felt that out of control in a fight.
Yeah, no, he's usually the one that's applying all the heat. Mm-hmm. And that's what you notice in that Anthony Pettis fight,
Yeah.
Like he was controlling most of the tempo of the fight. Pettis got him with like that high leg kick at one point. But for the most part, it was Ferguson totally in control.
Oh, another left.
Could it be also, too, you're Ferguson, you've had such a long layoff, too, between your last fight here, that you're coming in with a guy who does have such a good, like, tempo control like Gaethje does. It's tough to, like, gain the advantage right now. Spinning elbow, okay, but it looks like it was mostly blocked by Gaethje.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think all of those are definitely a factor. And Ferguson actually is looking a little slower at this point in time compared to some of his other fights. So he's moving a little bit more sluggish. He tried to throw a haymaker with that. Gaethje moved out of the way.
If you're throwing haymakers like that, I feel like you're getting desperate.
A little, especially this early for Ferguson, right? Like I could understand the 4th or 5th, and you're like, hey, I kind of got to put him away, but
backing him up.
Yeah. No, this really is an interesting fight. This is not the way that.
Looks like Tony's bleeding from the air right now too. Makes sense. He's been popped on the side of the head a couple times.
Quite a few times, yeah.
Below the eye too, a little bit of a bleeding going on there.
Yeah.
If this keeps going, Ferguson's going to be a bloody mess by the end of this fight.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's not afraid to get bloody. Then that's one thing we know about Tony.
And that's the thing is he's got other options he can use in this fight. We may have to start seeing him go for him, right? As instead of just standing and begging, he's starting to lose that. Maybe he starts going for some takedowns that we don't normally see.
Well, I do think that a good thing that you mentioned about that is that Ferguson could change up his style in between rounds, you know?
Oh, huge uppercut.
Whew. Saved by the bell.
Right there. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that uppercut literally took Gaethje off his feet. Like that's how hard that uppercut was.
Now that's the danger of what Gaethje's been doing. He's been on Tony's ass this entire fight, you know.
Yeah.
And Tony finally was able to get a good significant blow and the impact.
Yeah, and we talked about recency bias.
Yeah.
And that whole round, you and I, we were talking. We're like, yeah, I think Gaethje's still winning this fight. This uppercut was freaking phenomenal. They haven't shown the replay yet, but I wonder if that might have won Ferguson the round. Based off that.
Yeah, no, because there was enough action, enough significant. I mean, look, we're seeing like 5 or 6 Gaethje blows in this one. Compare that against the uppercut, and with that said, Gaethje still luckily he was always on it. He was on his feet. But
ooh, there it is.
He just went for it, and Ferguson was a little quicker on the draw with it.
Yeah.
Luckily, bounced right up. Clock ended. He was able to get through it, and let's see if he wasn't rocked too hard at the end of the second round there.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's a quick time to recover from that. Had there been more time at the end of the second, Ferguson wins that fight.
I don't know. Yeah.
He puts it away. I think if there was even 30 more seconds.
Ferguson does a great job of jumping
Ferguson
on
puts
people.
it away.
So, it's possible. It's certainly possible.
I do wonder how dazed Gaethje is right now. That was a really hard hit.
We're throwing some leg kicks now. Okay.
Yep. And Gaethje does look a little bit more timid right now.
Well, now if you're Ferguson, you finally have a little confidence in this fight. You know, you've been on your heels this entire matchup.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every time you've tried to throw a punch, try to throw a kick, you've been greeted by 2 more fits by Gaethje. So
exactly. And that left hook, he's always countering. Gaethje's still throwing it.
Some of these blows so far are a little bit wild, a little bit less controlled and timed out. Oh my God, Stephen A's on this. Good Lord, Ferguson is getting some good hits with shots. Garth,
I don't know if that's
both hands, good
autocorrect.
boxing skills. I want to see a podcast between JRE and Stephen A. Smith. Do you think that Stephen would just crumble in like a long form podcast? Do you think we'd actually learn some real Stephen A. Smith? Because again, we see the talk shows and they're stupid sometimes. Let's be real.
Yeah, I would actually be interested to see, but I feel like when you're a brand, Stephen A. Smith is at the point where he's a brand. He can't go back on it.
And he could get exposed in that context.
Exactly.
You know?
That's why I don't think he would ever do it.
Because if he had it exposed, then half the things I say are bullshit. You know?
Yeah. Same with Skip Bayless, right? Skip Bayless, I feel like he's a brand.
Yeah.
And even Colin Cowherd, I feel like half the time they don't believe the things that they're saying.
Colin
maybe
does, because Colin doesn't have to defend his against anyone else.
Yeah,
know?
Colin a little bit more.
But the big show format, at least one person has to take the counter side. So I feel like a lot of times in those pre-production meetings, they're like, pick a side and go with it, you know?
Yep, exactly. And I think that's the thing is I'm sure Skip Bayless doesn't really think LeBron James is garbage, right?
No.
But like, there's no way you could. The man's been incredible, but he has to say it for, you know.
Yeah,
to get
because
those
he's
views.
been saying it for the last 10 years. So if he doesn't say it now, it's like, what? Okay.
Yep.
Let's.
All right.
I think he's trying to capture that magic with that uppercut again. We saw it just right
Oh! That was a good hook.
We're starting to see
from
some
Gaethje.
bleeding from the top of that eye, too. So be careful with that.
Ferguson is hurt. He's backing up, but he's throwing some shots of his own back at Gaethje.
One of those eyes might close up, dude.
I know. This is a really good fight.
They are swelling up pretty fast, and we still got 2 more rounds potentially on this one.
Yeah.
Because if you look at his eye at the start of the round versus now, it has closed up significantly.
Oh, yeah. And wonder how that vision.
Oh, that was straight on.
That's what I'm saying. I think that vision, and like you said, that closed eye, he can't see those rights coming at him anymore. So that right hook might be more dangerous than the left hook.
Take advantage of your Gaethje, right? You have your vision obscured right now. Swing from the right.
Especially every time that Ferguson throws a left. Yeah. You know that that's going to be open. Every single time Ferguson either throws a jab or a punch with his left, there's going to be an opening to that right side.
Keep your distance, wait for him to throw a shot, and then counter with that right hook.
Yep.
There it is again.
Yeah, and you can see it. I'm sure Gaethje's corner is telling him that. It's like, hey, that eye is closed. There's going to be that blind spot now.
Let's see. Hopefully we don't get any stoppages with this one.
Yep.
But, I mean, one of the things the refs look for is, are you bleeding above that eye?
Yep. Or if it's closed bad enough, even if it's not bleeding, they stop it.
Yeah, because if you can't see, that's unfair to put the fighter in that position.
Mm-hmm. And they honestly don't want you to lose your eye, right? Like, you keep getting hit in that eye too much, you possibly go blind forever.
Mm-hmm. It's not like always the Rocky movies where cut me, Mick, cut me.
Yeah. Yo, Adrian.
I did it.
But yeah, no, this has been a fantastic.
Oh, that was nifty. You talk about creativity right there. That sweep was sick.
That was beautiful. It was this really interesting lower leg, almost like a soccer type kick.
Yeah.
From the left. So Ferguson squatted down, threw a left sort of roundhouse inside the lower left leg of Gaethje, tripped him up a little bit.
A little wild on that swing by Gaethje.
Yeah. So far, this is an excellent main event. Oh,
almost got him with a head kick there.
I know.
This is right now being fight of the night, I would say.
Absolutely.
First 3 rounds, these guys have been on their toes, keeping each other, keeping the pressure.
Yep.
Love this fight. Good call by Dana and the UFC to put this one on in lieu of the Ferguson Khabib news.
Yep. This is exactly what I think the sports world needed. Is you have an event and it lives up to everything we want it to be. I mean, the Ngannou fight, even though it was so short, it lived up to everything we hoped it would be.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the Cejudo and Cruz fight lived up to what we thought it would be. It was maybe a little bit cut short, and there was that controversial decision. But I think that lived up to it. The Hardy fight I thought was interesting for some big boys. And then the Stevens and Qatar fight was fantastic. So, and I honestly don't know who to give like knockout of the night to. I'm still saying it's going to be Ngannou.
That was just brutal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brutal, that Ngannou's. Oh, man.
Yep. And this fight is fantastic. I mean, we've seen really good action from both sides. I think you're right. I think we've got Gaethje is probably winning this fight.
I feel like you could give him all 3 rounds, even taking away that uppercut in that last.
And that's in the second
round.
I could see the argument for that. Gaethje's been a lot busier. Those hooks have been really doing some damage that we never see Ferguson really taking.
Well, let's see how Ferguson responds here. Round 4. He has another contusion underneath his cheek right there. His let's see, right cheek.
Oh, good inside leg kick from Gaethje.
I think he's waiting for Tony to throw some strikes so he could hit him again with that overhand right. That's
what I'm thinking, especially when he exposes himself. We know that he's got that blind spot.
Front kick to keep him honest. Okay.
Yep. And then, they have these ice packs that they put on swelling above the eye and on the head when you're in breaks. It's hard to apply it directly to the eye, though. And so there's not much you can do with when your eyelid is literally swollen,
Even his nose is swollen up. So that's basically, Tony's not going to look the same for a couple days. If he has facial ID on his phone, Ducked by Gaethje.
Yeah, that could have been a really bad spinning back heel kick.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was. You talk about just the creative moveset that Tony has. Like, no one can mimic it. Only Tony could be able to do half of the stuff he does.
And that's why I love watching Tony Ferguson fight so much. And it's a shame that he's never been given the true opportunity, really, for the actual championship. He's always been offered interim championships, or the fights always fall through with Khabib. But Tony has been one of the best fighters to not be the legitimate champion, in my opinion.
This round's so far a little bit more even. We're about 3:30 into the fourth round right now, guys.
Yep. And Gaethje has still landed some really significant, hooks that he's been doing.
Oh,
landed another one right as I say that, right to the chin. That left hook is still deadly.
Props to Tony's chin, because I think a lesser fighter might have been on the ground already.
I would probably be down, honestly.
With some of these blows that Gaethje has put on him.
I would be out. I would have been out probably in the first round.
Because these aren't passing or glancing blows. They've been straight on the chin. They've been in his eardrum. They've been in his eye.
Yep, the temple, everywhere. And Ferguson keeps going. There was one time in the last round where Ferguson backpedaled, but that was only for about 30 seconds. Shook it off, and then kept going.
That's a little I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a weird shuffle front kick.
If you are a WWE fan, he tried to do a bro kick.
Exactly.
That little. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Bicycle kick. That's what it's called.
Yeah. Honestly, props to Gaethje too, though. After that second round, that uppercut, I thought he would have been much more shooken up.
Be able to compete completely in the third round, dominate the third round, I would say. And oh my God, what is this?
I think Ferguson might be
Ferguson was running away from him.
Yeah.
You never see Tony running away from people.
No, not like that. So he must have been feeling something. So I'm thinking that there was a slight exchange where maybe Gaethje clipped him, and he saw that, okay, Ferguson is hesitating now.
A little bit of leg issues, I think, too, because he stumbled there.
Yeah, and you can see him sort of limping. He's not able to close that distance, and he doesn't have that normal fluid movement that he has. He's changing stances a lot, and I'm talking about Ferguson in this case.
Yeah, he's not bouncing around on his toes. He's not doing the typical Tony side-to-side shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
But watch, he does his little spin.
Yep. He's still doing Tony as best he can, but it does look like there is some type of injury, maybe a leg injury of some kind.
Joe Rogan said it, just the efficiency in each of these blows. I don't think there's been a wasted strike by Gaethje. All these strikes have been meaningful in some way, have made some kind of impact.
Yep.
And most of them have been hard contact.
Yeah. Looks like a low blow. So Gaethje, I think, got kicked with a spinning kick to the genitals. So hopefully Manscaped can do something for that and help you heal your nuts.
All about keeping the perfect package together.
Exactly. Good head movement after the throw.
I mean, if you are Gaethje, I feel like you can feel comfortable saying you've won the majority of these rounds. He doesn't necessarily have to finish Tony.
I think that's my worry. I think you're right. If I'm in now, I'm not going to tell Gaethje to necessarily just stop and chill. Ooh, good leg kick.
Got him with a leg kick. Got Tony stumbling forward.
Yeah.
You've dominated this fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I chose Ferguson, and even with my bias towards how much I love Ferguson, I've got to agree with you, Juju, that Gaethje is winning this fight at the moment.
We see a lot of action here at the end of the rounds. Let's see if Ferguson tries to do something crazy. No, he's
still going.
Oh, that was a long 10 seconds.
Yeah, that was. All right, so we're going into the final round, and I agree with you, Juju. I think Gaethje is winning this fight.
Even if you gave Tony that second round because of the uppercut, you can still mark it 3-1 right now, Gaethje.
Yeah. No, I agree. This is the most we've seen Ferguson struggle. And I think it's a few things. So one is Gaethje is just the much better fighter when they're closer up than Ferguson is used to, because a lot of guys, when they're getting hit by Ferguson from range, they continue to back up. Gaethje does the opposite, where he might get hit with a good jab and a good straight, which is more of a long-range punch, but then he's getting in closer and closer
Let's
to
listen
throw
to
those
this.
hooks.
Sure. I was kind of curious what the coach was saying in the corner, but I'm pretty sure his coach is pretty much telling him the same, like, hey, you're in control on this one. Don't take any stupid risk.
Yep. No, I agree. I think, and if I'm Tony's corner, I'm saying, like, hey, try to finish him.
You got to go balls out in this round if you're Tony.
Yep.
And hey, if there's anyone that could end someone quick.
Yeah. Even that takedown was a little interesting. So he went thumb down inside into the low ankle to do sort of a weird single leg ankle pick type movement. It wasn't successful, but it was a really interesting creative move from Tony Ferguson. But, Juju, to your point, I think that just shows Ferguson being a little bit more desperate now, and that he's trying really unorthodox things to push that pace.
Now, here's the thing. If he tries to get, because again, anytime he's tried to come in hard on Gaethje, he's been greeted by a Gaethje like right hook,
Yep. Oh, like we said, right there. Talking about those hooks.
Exactly. It's like you're sticking, it's like sticking your dick in a hornet's nest right now.
Yeah.
Maybe a murdered hornet's nest.
Yeah, even worse, right? So we're 1 minute into the fifth and final round. It's 4 minutes left. And Gaethje is still, I'm surprised. I didn't think Gaethje had this good of a gas tank compared to Ferguson, but he's moving the whole time.
Give the credit to Denver. Damn, his leg is bleeding too, man.
I know. Blood everywhere. This has got to be a fantastic main event. And I feel bad for these guys because there's no crowd there to watch it. I think the crowd would be going wild.
They would be all over some of these strikes,
They would absolutely love it. And so it's sad that these guys are competitors. They'll fight no matter what, but they're not getting
He rocked him. Got him hobbling back
again. This
Maybe
could be
Gaethje
it.
is trying to finish him now.
I think Gaethje could be. And that's the thing is Gaethje had the ability to stay patient. He didn't have to push it, and that's when things open up is, hey, I'm patient. Now I can go in and start doing my own thing.
Well, when you got an opponent like backpedaling, stumbling, we saw it in the Ngannou fight. Sometimes you just got to hammer down, And maybe for Gaethje, the difference between a decision or a decisive victory like this, and a great example of Tony's unbended moveset there, he did a somersault ankle pick attempt.
Yep.
But back to Gaethje, I was like, the difference between being a decided the difference between decision victory and a knockout.
Yep.
Could be imperative for him and potentially, gain a firm title himself. This is for the interim belt as is.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, we've been talking so much about this Tony versus Khabib fight, but Gaethje's putting himself in that conversation.
Oh, and then he just landed a left hook, and that looked like it dropped Ferguson. It could have been a weird slip, but Gaethje, you're exactly right. He's now in that conversation, and I think we see Ferguson slip back. And unfortunately, Ferguson's getting older. I don't know if we ever see Ferguson fight for that title again.
Yeah, I mean,
especially after this, Gaethje
another just solid brutal strike. You're Rogan there with the and that's right because the pops on these, man.
Yep. But props to Ferguson. Somebody had put in the Twitter. I couldn't read who it was, but they're like, Ferguson's chin needs to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. Like he's taken hit after hit after hit, and he keeps coming forward.
Yeah, seriously. Like another fighter probably out in the first.
Yep.
After some of those hits.
Oh, Ferguson is wobbled now. I think this is it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, Gaethje loves to do that like backflip off of the cage. Didn't work out so well there on the cage.
That is really incredible. That is really incredible. Props to Gaethje. Good call on that one, Juju.
Ferguson's a little pissed. Okay, well.
But it was sort of weird in that it looked like Ferguson had called it off himself. I guess let's listen to the commentary.
He was stopped on his feet.
Well, at the end when he got stunned, it looked like he was shaking his head, like it wasn't like nothing, like his body wasn't functioning correctly after he got hit with that shot. Herb Dean, the best in the business. Herb Dean took a look at him. He's like, I've seen enough.
Yeah,
I want to see that
for
end
YouTube's sake.
sequence again,
But
because when Justin,
I could see that frustration for a fighter when a stoppage happens on their feet.
Yeah.
But if you're Ferguson, you were pretty much out on your feet, you know?
Yeah, I think the result would have been the same. At the very least, we know Gaethje was winning that fight.
Yeah, if this went on the last 60 seconds of the fight, do we seriously see Tony making a turnaround?
Yeah. And you can see him literally limping away. He's backpedaling the entire time, and he's shaking his head. And what I imagine could have happened is Herb Dean saying, like, can you continue? And while Tony's trying to shake off those cobwebs, it looks like, no, I can't continue, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we saw something unique from Tony in this fight twice, him running away from Gaethje, you know?
Yeah, it was very, very unlike Tony to run away. And that's how, props to Gaethje. He had him hurt. Like, he obviously had him hurt.
It was, in this fight, entirely on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single takedown attempt in this fight. So it's incredible. Definitely our fight of the night.
Yep.
Hands down.
Absolutely.
Incredible competitors between Gaethje and Ferguson. And there we go. Okay, so, I mean.
They ended up hugging it out.
They ended up hugging it out. I mean, so no need to call Ferguson a sore sport about it. I could see him being pissed off in the moment. No, get the fuck off me. I don't want to hug you.
Yeah, and they're competitors, and this is for the interim belt, right? So obviously you would be pissed off too if you lost, especially if you're still on your feet, right?
And it means more for Tony.
It does.
Coming
to the end of his career.
Referee Herb Dean has called a stop to this contest at 3 minutes, 39 seconds of round number 5. Declaring the winner by TKO and new interim UFC lightweight champion, Justin the Gaethje.
And I called it.
You got me on that one, Juju. I mean, we got the rest of them right, but you got this one. You got
undefeated on the main card.
You went undefeated on the main card, Juju. We need to put money on this.
MMA Juju, right here. MMA Juju.
Great job. Great job.
Justin, you came in here tonight. This was a fight that, because Nurmagomedov couldn't make it to the April card, you were slated to fight then on short notice, but you had the opportunity to truly prepare for this fight, and what a performance. Has it sunk in? I mean, how good do you feel about that fight?
I knew I was a killer stepping in here. I'm good, bro.
I'm sure you are. You also did
I'm good, bro.
No better draw on earth. Adrenaline coursing through my veins. This is hard work. I've worked since I was 4 years old. It's each day at a time. From
when he started wrestling.
Past one day, and you just have to be better than yesterday. That's all it is.
What we saw from you tonight is not just what we always see, which is incredible aggression and spectacular technique, but you were more measured. You were more calculated. Tell me about that.
I have a world-class coach. I had to lose to change. Can't fix what's not broken. Once I understood what was wrong, I was getting hit too much. And I was honestly having too much fun. Both times I lost, I became complacent because I was having so much fun. And at this level, you absolutely cannot do that. I was fighting the best in the world. Khabib was the best in the world. I've been working since I was 4 for challenges like this. And, I'm happy to represent the United States of America against Dagestan or Russia's best. He's 28-0, and there's no other challenge I want right now. I want to fight him.
Well, I can't wait to see you fight him. Now, tell me about this fight.
Tony
Ferguson ate some incredible shots.
He's going to hide in Russia from Gaethje after those strikes.
You hit him with
I would be too.
kitchen sink.
I'm
talking about dropping bombs, man.
Yeah.
There's no surprise.
Now, at the end of the fight, when Herb Dean came in and stopped the fight, when you saw he was staggered, were you surprised?
I feel bad for him because if that was me, I'd be fucking pissed. Because I came in here to die. I told my coaches in the back, you're not going to like me, but I'm going to die tonight.
But that's true. That is a fight.
You have to, though.
You're losing for me. It's about not
It's
disappointing myself,
so
my
unlike
family,
any other
and
sport.
representing God to the best I can.
I know it would never happen, right?
Help my
But
neighbor.
there is a
Help my
microcosm
neighbor.
of risk you could.
to have a human services
Absolutely.
degree.
Someone knocks
If
you
I
on your
want to
head
go
wrong.
to human social work somewhere, I've got to be a
Good out.
probation officer. I want to work with at-risk youth. I'm a killer in here, but as soon as I step out of this octagon, you will not see that in me.
Props
Well,
to Gaethje
in the
for saying
biggest
that,
fight
too,
of your
know?
career, you
Being able to
performed
flip that
brilliantly.
switch
This was
from, I'm a
truly
good human
a spectacular
outside,
fight and an
but I'm
honor to
a
call it.
competitor and a
Congratulations.
killer here.
Really amazing. I don't care. Congratulations.
I honestly wish, so let alone kidding. All glory to God, man. My parents, to be a good parent, you have to lead by example. You never tell your kid to do something and do the opposite. If you're gonna say something,
To my kids out there,
you show it.
go kick
That's how my
everyone's
parents
ass
led
on the
me,
playground.
and that's why I'm the person I am. Lead from the front.
Congratulations, sir. Justin Gaethje, ladies and gentlemen.
Ngannou, how the main event.
I'm here with
Saying,
Tony Ferguson.
Amanda
Tony,
Nunez, what a
first of
fight.
all,
Happy
amazing
night.
fight and just an incredible war. What did you expect coming in here, and what, if anything, was surprising?
Man, it's been a long fucking camp. I'll be real. We've been preparing since November. Obviously, the 18th didn't fall through with Khabib. Obviously, Justin was the only one that wanted to sign on dotted line. Just a long camp, and then just, the weight cut had nothing to do with it. Justin's a tough son of a bitch. I'll be real. I'm prepared for Khabib, not so much of a striker. Shit happens, man.
Hey, you said it.
You
did
compare
compare
Khabib. Step in it.
Wasn't
I'm
prepared
still
for strikes.
excited.
Yeah.
Even though I stopped, I wish I would have I got finished.
Well, you are a champion, and I'm sure that's how you would have wanted to go out. Give us your thoughts on what happens from here. Do you go back and reassess, or do you jump right back in?
Let's go back and get, you know what I mean? The consolation rounds, you have to win back, and you have to obviously earn it. Props to Justin, like I said, his team, tough son of a bitch. And thank you for taking the fight, Justin. Hopefully the crowd, everybody, family, and friends. Remember, we did this guys for years, so
gatekeeper status.
back, hopefully you guys enjoy the fight, man.
Have you
And
never hit
Keith,
that
I
pinnacle?
love you signing my
Now
life.
you're stuck sort of where Donald Cerrone was over
Thank
the
you very
past
much
4
for your
years.
support.
I mean, we know for Khabib, Gaethje, that makes sense.
An awesome fight, an excellent
That's
performance.
probably the
Tony
fighters
Ferguson, ladies and
division you're
gentlemen.
putting together right now.
Well, Daddy's coming home. I'm on.
But,
Justin Gaethje is the new interim UFC.
But yeah, no, for Tony, it's a weird one. He doesn't have like a direct line back to Khabib.
Yeah. No, I think that's the thing is, and unfortunately, Ferguson may go down, like I said, as one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter, to not win the actual title. He won some interim belts, and it was unfortunate that they were never able to unify them. But I think now you can't justify giving Ferguson the Khabib shot. Maybe if Khabib beats Gaethje, or I guess either way that fight happens, right? If Gaethje wins, you might be able to say, okay, yeah, let's do the rematch. But it's still gonna be hard because everybody's gonna say, well, Ferguson needs another fight before he just gets either the rematch with Gaethje or the Khabib title. And it's like, you now run the risk of does Ferguson lose that? And once we saw him take a lot of hits. Once your chin starts to go, it starts to go.
And well, I mean, hey, he didn't officially. I mean, he didn't get knocked out in the traditional sense,
Yeah. He wasn't out cold.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and well, let's see here. So I mean, yeah, it's a tough thing for Ferguson. I feel bad for him a little bit.
Yeah.
But hey, as part of kind of that, figuring out what's going on with lightweight, we also got to talk about what Connor's going to do with Khabib as well. He wants that Khabib fight.
Yep.
So
Connor wants that.
I mean, if Khabib strings them along, which he's been known to do, could we potentially see Gaethje versus Connor? That fight has been connected to before as well.
I really think the UFC actually would like a Gaethje Connor fight, and the reason being is Khabib and Connor doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the UFC because Khabib is literally the kryptonite for Connor. Like if you want a blueprint to beat Connor, you got to be a really good wrestler. You get him on the ground and you punch him a lot until he turns his back and you choke him. But Gaethje is willing to stand and bang. Connor, that's his go-to is he's on feet.
Excellent striker.
I think that's a really good fight to make. Now, the problem is Connor's been moving around so many weight classes, but I think he can still make 155. I think it is a lot bigger now that he was at 170, but he could probably make 155.
Yeah, I think he's going to want to stay put. I mean, he also is talking about the Masvidal potential, and these other fights too that aren't necessarily for a belt per se, but are going to be big pay-per-view buys if he does them. You put Conor against anyone, it's going to be a huge draw.
Yep, absolutely.
You put him against Oscar De La Hoya.
Yeah, they've been talking
Oscar's
about that.
out here talking shit, and he said he could drop Conor. What do you think of that? An old Oscar versus Conor?
No, I think Conor McGregor is just too athletic, too young, basically.
Even
with
the boxing disadvantage?
Even with the boxing disadvantage, I think De La Hoya loses that for sure.
I mean, because, he stood in there well against Floyd, and Floyd's probably a better boxer than De La Hoya.
Yeah, absolutely. At least from a technical standpoint, right? Like maybe not the power that De La Hoya had when De La Hoya was in his prime. But Floyd is technically probably the better boxer. What I actually found interesting in this fight that I really liked from Tony, even though he lost, he was sort of using Floyd's shoulder roll tactic. So when Ferguson would turn because he was eating those shots from Gaethje, he would turn that shoulder up, and he would cover to block his body and use that shoulder to deflect punches off of it. So I thought that was really creative that he picked up from Floyd Mayweather.
Gotcha. All right, so we named the fight of the night. We talked about the main event a little bit. Best knockout, we're giving it to Ngannou, right?
Has to be Ngannou.
All right. How about, so for UFC 249 as a whole, right? So, we usually do this for movies and everything like that. But, what about, let's give it a rating on this one here.
So the rating that I'm going to give is home run. I think it's 5-star. Easy. Like, part of it could be from the lack of any sports, right? And so getting your hands on anything. But even the undercards were fantastic. And then we saw basically all finishes in the main card except for that Hardy fight.
Yeah.
What more can you ask for? It was action-packed, and guys weren't afraid to go out and get it, right? Even in the Ngannou fight, like they were banging. Like Rosenstruck came out swinging too. It's just he got caught. This fight, they weren't afraid to engage. So yeah, even the Hardy fight, like even though it didn't end in a knockout or anything, it was one of the more exciting heavyweight fights that I've seen.
I agree. Home run.
Absolutely.
I mean, we needed this. We needed this as a society amidst the whole COVID dilemma and everything else. I'm so happy to see a live sport again. It was odd not having the crowd there. It was disappointing from that format, but the fights were so amazing.
Absolutely.
They were all good fights. This was a great card. Thank you to Dana White. Thank you to UFC. Thank you to all the fighters on the card, from Greg Hardy all the way up to Tony Ferguson, all the way to Justin Gaethje. Great performance, guys. To the Slumpbuster Nation, thank you for sticking with us through the live stream. Hopefully you enjoyed us. Hopefully you enjoyed the fights a little bit more. We'll be back with another episode here coming on, of course, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all that good stuff throughout the week. MMA 101. Check out Dre's page. His new Insta handle is now MMA_Dre101 at Juju Talk Sports here. Of course, hit that follow button on at Slumpbuster Podcast, at Slumpbuster Pod on Twitter, iHeartRadio, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. Go find it. You all know where to get your podcast at, and we hope we're one of your favorites. Catch you later. We're ending the stream. Peace. Baby.